Good evening. I would like to call to order the Keizer City Council in regular session. It is Monday, April 17th, 2023, and ask our city recorder to please call roll.
Councilor Reed.
Here.
Councilor Hussman.
Here.
Councilor Kohler.
Here.
Mayor Clark.
Here.
Council President Starr.
Here.
Councilor Duran.
Here.
Councilor Cross.
Here.
And Youth Councilor Sarmiento.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much for joining us. I would invite you all to rise if you are able and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, it is truly a pleasure this evening to begin with under special orders of business. We are going to recognize the contest winners for the If I Were Mayor video contest. This is put on every year by the Oregon Mayors Association statewide. There's elementary, which is posters, middle school, which are essays, and then high school, which are videos. And City Councilor Laura Reed is also a teacher at McNary High School, and her students produce videos to postulate what would they do if they were mayor. I enjoyed watching them and enjoyed hearing your thoughts. And tonight we are going to award certificates to our honorable mentions and to our winners and to the one that was advanced to the state competition. So some of the key issues that our students addressed were housing and homelessness, education, community involvement, cleanup days, arts, theater, music, youth gathering spaces, parks and green spaces, and the environment. Sounds kind of like our council goals. So I really appreciated the thoughtfulness that went into these videos, and we will be posting the winning ones online as they give permission to Mrs. Reed to the city to have those posted. So before I start with our first group, Councilor Reed, would you like to talk about this project and the students that were involved?
Well, I'm very excited to talk about these. So these are, I'm going to say, the top McNary students. These are the best that we have to offer, and I'm very, very proud of them. And this is the AP language students, and at the end of their semester, last semester, they were, after lots of fabulous projects and lots of critical thinking, they were tasked with the project of talking about what they would do if they were mayor. And so we had some discussions about what that would entail, and they of course took it their own direction and put some really good thought into it, and you will see some of the results.
All right, thank you. So what we're going to start off with is there was a category of awards that I wanted to recognize. There were 3 students that chose specific topics to focus their video on. And they did such an amazing job just really understanding that particular topic and this relevance to the community that I wanted to recognize them. So first off, if you are here, I'm going to invite up Gwendolyn Leduc, who did a topic of mental health. It was brilliant. If you want to just come up to the table here, and I'll come up with the certificates. Courtney Brown did one on arts and murals in the community. It was beautiful presentation. And Sophia Walden did one on, where is it? On the library. Barbara Miner, she is the chair of the board. You need to get a hold of this student. Her video you could use on the website. So I'm going to come, and looks like you are the one here. So congratulations, great job. Come on. To your video, to what you were talking about, and the relevance of mental health and our community was just incredibly well done. Congratulations.
Okay, everybody say I want to be here. Okay, thank you.
Very, very well done. Nice to meet you. Next up, we have 3 videos that were honorable mentions. They did a great job in presentation, the thoughtfulness around the topics that they picked, and the relevance to what actually we can do in a city. So at this time, I would like to invite up Jackson Alt, Aiden Wilson, and come up to the table, and Haley Schweinoff. They did a fantastic job. Congratulations to these fine students. For you, congratulations. Very, very well done. Aiden, great job.
Thank you.
I think you also wore that for the video, didn't you?
The coat, yeah.
Yes, you did. Well done, congratulations. Get a picture with Mrs. Reed as well. Yeah. How about the 3 places? There we go.
That's the best I get. Excellent.
All right, thank you, well done. I think Hudson's the first one up?
Yes.
Okay. So now we're going to play 2 of the 3 top award winners. We don't have the permission slip for the 3rd one, but it will
she's
be.
not here.
And she's not here. So, but we'll be posted on the website when we get that signed permission. So you'll be able to go to our Keizer website. So the first one is this Hudson?
It will be.
Okay, Hudson Bruck. If he were mayor.
Hello, my name is Hudson Brunk, and this is what I would do if I was mayor. First of all, an introduction. I've been in Keizer for 17 years of my life, which would be the entirety of it. And I've attended 3 Keizer schools, these being Keizer Elementary, Whitaker Middle School, and McNary High School. First of all, what I would do as mayor is I would try to add a little bit more youth into the Keizer environment. I would do this by adding a place for young people to hang out, maybe like a trampoline park or an arcade, just something of the sort. I would try and add it to Keizer Station, try and push that agenda in order to have a little bit more of a young environment, because I think it's important that we have youth, because that's what the future is. It's the youth. That may be a little bit of my bias because I am within the youth demographic, but I think it's very important to have the future grown within Keizer and to have the youth now be the future later. We could also add to a place called Keizer Rapids Park. There's a lot of open land within that park which is not being capitalized on, which I think is a little bit of a flaw. I think maybe adding another park or a skate park or just anything for people to hang out and have fun, I think that would be very beneficial, just to kind of give Keizer a little bit more of a community. I think the dog park is great. I think the big toy is great, but I think we could add a little bit more with the land that we have there. Also with the river, I think it could just be a fantastic environment. I think we should add a little bit more to that. Next is something that I really think our mayor has done a great job with, and this is by participating in the Mid-Willamette Valley Homeless Alliance. I think it's very good that our mayor does that, and I would like to continue that and kind of just try and help out the homeless the best I can. One way that I think we could do that is by during the Miracle of Christmas light display, which goes on near Gupser, which is where I luckily got to go to elementary school. There's a light show during the Christmas time. And I think by expanding that maybe like across the bridge that connects Gupser and Country Glen Park, or maybe down 14th Street, or just expanding it anywhere else in Keizer, because there's tents set up that accept donations towards the Marion Polk food share. And I think by expanding that and accepting any donations, or even maybe setting up hot cocoa, any profits go to the Marion Polk food share, or just anything of that sort, I think it'd be very beneficial. It'll help feed the homeless, which I think would kind of just show what Keizer's about, you know, just showing pride and helping everyone out. So I think by adding a little bit of youth and by helping out the homeless the best we can, I think we can make Keizer a better place.
Well done, Hudson.
Hello, my name is Bentley Sava, and this is what I would do if I were mayor.
Yeah, so Beyonce's not here
Yes.
tonight, so we can't show that one, right? So we will go ahead now with the one that got advanced to state. And it was a team of 3 that produced this one. Elia Garnica Romero, Victor Ceja, and Cesar Rodriguez. Their video.
Hello, my name is Victor Sehan. I'm from McNairy High School.
Hello, my name is Elia Garnica Romero, and I'm also from McNair High School. The mayor is responsible for general welfare and also takes on the role of policymaking.
If I were mayor, I would put emphasis on encouraging civic engagement. One way of encouraging that would be to visit schools often as the mayor, to inspire the youth to be a part of the community and participate. Another way of encouraging civic engagement would be to host more community service opportunities. So these opportunities would look like park cleanups for the nearby parks, or school cleanups for our schools in the area. And another one would be tutoring younger students. Another thing I can do is organize more fundraisers to fund schools and nearby charities. This money could also be used for students in need in our community.
A major issue I'd like to tackle if I were mayor would be to reduce the homeless population. Through the last couple of years, there's been an increase in homeless people on the streets of our community. Something I could do in order to help decrease that population would be to go to businesses and organize a list of possible jobs that we could offer to those who need them. Another thing I could do is create a drive where people can drop off food that they plan on throwing out, or for those who feel generous and would like to donate some things to the people in need in our community. Something a lot of people really enjoy doing is going to thrift stores and just picking out the good things out of thrift stores. We could also organize a group of people that could do that instead and go hunt for clothes that the homeless in our community could use. Even going thrifting could be a little bit expensive for some of us in our community. Instead, we'd like to offer a chance to donate directly into an organization for those who are in need in our community, and instead donate directly to that. This project, however, is not just for those who are sleeping on the streets of our community, but also for the kids who are in our schools and that need supplies, clothing, and food.
And there you have it. This is the one that went to state, and we'll be seeing this in the state competition at the Oregon Mayor's Conference this summer. Well done. I'd like to invite up our winners. All right. Well done. There. So, Elia, did I pronounce it correctly? Elia. Congratulations, very well done. And for Cesar? There you go, congratulations. And for Victor?
Yeah.
Very good, and Hudson, come on up. Very well done. Congratulations. So let's gather up here. Well, it's going a little bit different, a little bit sideways, you get more people in.
You guys need to switch.
He's just taking pictures with bar troops.
Sorry, it's
Occupational
one of
hazard.
those crazy things. They have to be symmetry. All right. Now, one for the books, one for fun.
Yeah, we know how that goes. I'm so proud of all of you. Thank you for the work that you put into your videos. Obviously, the thought you put into it, and I just love hearing your generous hearts from you and all of your colleagues who are wanting to care about people in our community. Well done. So we're going to watch for them in the 2026, 28 elections. I'm only half kidding. Thank you again very much. Well done, and look for those to be on our website. We're now going to go to committee reports, and we're going to start off with Councilor Husband, who has 2 appointments to make.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's only going to be one. I apologize, I didn't get my CDEC appointment in time, but I would like to announce my appointment to the Volunteer Coordinating Committee of Emerson Corella. Very excited for Emerson, and I think he's going to be able to both contribute a lot and learn a lot in the position.
Okay, one question, is he 18?
No.
He is not 18.
Told me he was 17.
Yeah, he's not an adult. Can he serve on the committee? He's going to be our youth counselor next year, I believe.
Not what I was told.
Oh, is the other one? Okay. So he's a 17-year-old. We're going to have to check on that. If he is if he can be, then he can be the appointment. So he is not an adult.
I'll check on that, Madam Mayor. I'm sorry I don't have the answer off the top of
All
my
right,
head.
thank you.
I apologize for not checking in sooner. Thank
All
you
right,
all.
thank you very much. All right, then, I have 2 other people signed up for committee reports, and we'll start off with Matt Lawyer, who's going to talk about our auspicious Planning Commission. Good to see you, sir.
All right. Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council, and staff. For the record, Matt Lawyer, I'm the chair of the Keizer Planning Commission. And our meetings are always fun, but not nearly as fun as what you get to see tonight, which will be pretty exciting. Glad to see that on the agenda. We basically went through a variety of different code updates. A lot of it was correcting Scrivener errors, changing chapters of sections, and so on. We did have a couple areas with some specific substantive changes, specifically changing shared housing facilities to accessory dwelling units under section 2.403. Talking a little bit about enclosed patios, covered patios in an ADU. Currently, there's no limitation to the square footage of a covered patio, and we're requesting to keep that the same. And we also looked at whether or not we wanted to require stairs on an accessory dwelling unit that's above a garage. And currently, we didn't recommend that as being a requirement. We had a lot of conversation, particularly around House Bill 2001 and the importance of making sure we're having really good conversations with our fire department so that we have accessibility in some of these structures that are behind lots and were not traditionally designed with fire apparatus access. And so we may get to have a conversation with the fire department, should be great. So we clearly understand that. But we're thankful to have a public works department that's very well engaged and understands all those limitations as well. So let's see, what else? It was a pretty good discussion, I think, for the volume of the changes, which for, like I said, the most part were Scrivener errors. We did have quite a bit of dialogue. I think there was one, and I'm trying to find it. I didn't highlight it. I apologize, Madam Mayor. One of it was discussing habitable space around cottage clusters, and then one of the other key nuances was around accessory structures, and then changing them into an auxiliary dwelling unit. And so currently, if you have an accessory structure and you convert that to an auxiliary dwelling unit, you can maintain it in the existing footprint so long as it's a single-story unit. If it goes above a single-story unit, then you actually have to meet the same setbacks as you would a dwelling for every height, you got to go out a foot. Other than that, we had a fantastic update from Councilor Durrani. Gave us a lot of information about some great things that are happening in Keizer, and it was just good to be back. We have our youth committee liaison, Amanpreet Sandhu. She always comes up with the most fascinating questions, and she actually asked the planning commissioners, why is it you want to do this? And thankfully everybody lied and nobody said we got our arms twisted. I'm kidding. But it was really cool. She's very engaged, and I love to see that level of participation. Watching this video, it's great to see young people engaging and continuing to do the good work. So we're just lucky to have good youth in our town and engaged in what we're doing. So any questions on the Planning Commission update?
All right, thank you very much. Questions? All right, looks like you're getting off easy.
I can talk about other stuff if you want. I'm just- Thanks.
All right, thank you very much. Clea Rushton for the Parks Report.
Thank you, Mayor. Parks Board report from April 11th. A few things that we talked about. There's been some tagging going on at Bob Newton Park. Been a bit of a concern. Quite heavy, quite a bit of damage. I'm also a part of the MAC group within Keizer, and Bob Shackelford has sent out a notice to all of us to try to see if we can help out with that. And I know quite a few of us have signed up for that, so we're going to try and jump in and see if we can help with some of the tagging in general. Another item that we discussed this past Tuesday was matching grant request from West Keizer Neighborhood Association, Palmacia. We approved a $650 matching grant to be used for, was it Palmacia? No. Oh, Willamette Manor. Okay, my bad. And then we also, if there's anybody that notices mowing that hasn't been done, it's because weather permitting, Robert was saying. And last but not least, April is actually National Pickleball Month. And it's every one of your counselors' lucky day, because as soon as I notified my contact at USA Pickleball, he sent equipment for all of you. So. I'm not going to pass it out. You get to pass it out.
Oh, my goodness.
Whoa.
Yeah, apparently these are all different.
So they are quite different, so pick them out how you want. And if anybody has questions, I'm here to answer them.
Wow.
And I'd like to see Matt Lawyer top that next time.
These are for pickleball.
Yes, ma'am. And courts are coming
what were you
soon to
thinking to use
Keizer
it
Rapids
for?
Park.
I'm just clarifying.
Now I know where that sound comes from.
Yes, ma'am, and the ball looks something like this.
Yeah, ka-thunk.
That is so awesome. Thank you.
We are also working on noise reduction, and Keizer Rapids Park, because of my involvement with USA Pickleball, will be part of a test group trying to reduce the somewhat annoying noise.
I think it's the wonderful sound of people outside having a good time, but that's just, my half cup, more than half full. So there we go. But I really appreciate the MAC group helping with the graffiti issue. Keizer Little League Park got nailed again over the weekend. I got pictures. We've got to win. Just where they tag, get rid of it as fast as we can. And go, nope, that ain't gonna happen. Nope, not here. And just keep after it. Thank you so much.
Yep, thank you.
So, any other questions on parks and pickleball?
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. All right, that's all I have for committee reports. Is there anybody here to give a committee report that I may have missed? Okay. And then the other updates will come from City Council at the end of the meeting. Public comment, this time is provided for citizens to address the council on any matters other than those on the agenda scheduled for a public hearing. We have a public hearing tonight for, drum roll please, Keizer Station Area D Master Plan Amendment. Woo! I'm not excited. So before I get into people who have signed up for public comment, we have written comments, and we have from Laura Davis, resident of Keizer, on loud cars. As a follow-up on that one, we did work with the police were responsive to plan to place the speed trailer out Wheatland, which is where she lives. Jonathan Thompson, resident of Keizer, right-of-way ordinance. Kim Allen, from Issaquah, Washington, the Wireless Policy Group, Keizer 4/17/23 Council Meeting, Verizon comments. Tony Shacker, resident of Salem, Salem Electric response to draft right-of-way ordinance, and Wendy Valise from PGE, joint letter from PGE and Salem Electric, 4/14/2023. So those are all entered into the record under public comment. Signed up to talk to us today Gotta move my piles here. I have, there it is, Barbara Minor to talk about the library. You ready to go? Always.
Good evening. I'm Barbara Miner. I'm the president of the board of directors for your Keizer Community Library, located right over there. And I just came in to give you a report of all the good things that are happening. Q1, our numbers were 30% increased visitor traffic from the same time period last year. And I think most small businesses would be pretty proud of that. We have increase from our preschool groups. We have Spanish 6:30 on Tuesday nights and preschool in English on 10:30 on Wednesday mornings. We also have a lot of increase from computer users. So when you think about the library, you think about 14,000 books, right? But there's the usage of the computer is a large piece of it, and our printers, we installed two replacement printers this quarter, more reliable. We retired some donated printers that gave us a lot of problems. But with cell phones, a lot of people do most of their computer work on their cell phone, and not everyone has printers at home, right? So we printed out a lot of tax forms this month. I actually helped someone print out their last will and testament. I tried not to read it, but she was having problems. We have a woman who came in, took a 5-hour over several days required computer class for her. We didn't ask questions. Anyway, a required computer class. And we have helpers who will help people fill out job applications online, or some problems with getting medical insurance. So this is a part of the library's service. We have 4 public computers, and they're mostly full. Most days they are full. So we're applying for grants to have 2 added computers a little closer together. So 2 announcements. We have our semi-annual book sale coming up on Friday and Saturday, May 19th and 20th. It's part of our mission to get all books a new home, a good home. So come and take your books home. Our prices are not increasing. We might be unique in that this year. And we are looking for some more Spanish-speaking volunteers and board members. We would like to increase the number of children's programs. So if you have ideas for that, we would love to hear from you. And finally, thank you to Counselor Starr, who is the liaison to the library and has provided some really excellent efficiency improvements based on her experience of being in a nonprofit and getting things done. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Barbara. Any questions? Oh, Councilor Husband has a really quick question for you.
Sorry, Barbara, can't let you go, but thank you so much. Again, always appreciate your updates. Do you mind just stating, for the benefit of the public, when the hours of computer usage are available for your 4 plus potentially 2?
Excellent. We also have expanded our hours, 2 hours, extra hours. We are open in the library from 3 to 7 on Monday and Tuesday, from 11 to 5 on Wednesday. That's our expanded hours after preschool story time. And from 1 to 5 on Thursday and Friday, and 11 to 3 on Saturday. And if you stop in the library, we have a bookmark that says all those on there you could take home with you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. All volunteer, always welcoming new volunteers to come and make this library continue to work for us. Thank you so much, Barbara. Next up, I have Joe Van Meter from Salem Electric Board. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, City Councilors. Good evening. Good evening. I'm here again to talk about the ordinance. I'm president of the Salem Electric Board of Directors and also a resident of Keizer and have been since 1972. Thanks for the opportunity to again speak to you tonight. I will be encouraging you to vote no on the ordinance. as it does impact the Salem Electric members. Unlike other affected utilities, Salem Electric is a member-owned electric cooperative. Our source of revenue is rates we charge our member owners. Salem Electric operates within a defined service territory granted decades ago by the PUC and has a requirement to serve its members within that territory. It is positioned differently than other utilities, such as communication companies that are included in this ordinance. The city staff has put in time over the last couple of months to address and alleviate significant rate increases to our members, and that has been appreciated. We are very thankful you listened to our concerns. Salem Electric has not been presented with the problems this ordinance is attempting to address. If you are concerned about telecommunication utilities or other types of utility, they could be addressed in separate ordinances. That's what the City of Hillsborough has done, and the League of Oregon Cities provides a model for telecommunication ordinances. However, given the nature of our business model and the statutory requirements that we work under, we feel it is in the best interests of Keizer, if you do pass this ordinance, that you work with electric utilities, Salem Electric and PGE, to negotiate and develop a separate franchise agreement. And the letter that you referenced has that recommendation. Hopefully you've all seen that. Yep. This is a better mechanism to regulate the use of the city's public rights-of-way for electric service for our constituents and your voters. It is a more efficient method and will allow all parties to address the subtle differences in the construction, location, and safety of facilities that supply electricity. Thank you for your time this evening, and I welcome your comments and am available for questions.
Thank you very much, sir. And we appreciate you coming again tonight and your service. Thank you. Mr. J.B. Phillips.
Good evening, councilors, Mayor Clark. I'm J.B. Phillips, Engineering Operations Manager at Salem Electric. I'm going to echo what Joe Van Meter spoke about. Salem Electric has a long-standing positive working relationship with the city, and we plan to continue to do that for the foreseeable future. We appreciate the opportunity to be here to make comments about the proposed right-of-way ordinance. I'm very appreciative that many of our concerns were already addressed in the previous versions. We do have concerns about the proposed ordinance, but it does allow for us to have a franchise agreement with you when the public interest warrants. It's our belief that given the distinct relationship with the city, our members' franchise agreement is the best interest for your constituents. And we did submit written comments to outline all of that. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. That's everybody I have signed up for public comment. Was there anyone else who wanted to address the council this evening under public comment? Okay, I do have people signed up for the public hearing, so stand by for that. All right, so given that, we will go to our public hearing. I'd like to open a public hearing for Keizer Station Area D Master Plan Amendment. And I believe I go to Mr. Johnson first.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. For those on the council, we are having one of the first quasi-judicial land use hearings. If you remember your training, quasi-judicial as opposed to legislative in a long time. So I actually get to talk before Shane for a brief statutory notice announcement. Oh. So exciting.
No, that's not going to work.
So if the participants in the council could please pay attention to the following statement, which is required under state law. The applicable substantive criteria in this case are quite voluminous and are set forth in the staff report. And if there are no objections, I would suggest waiving the reading of the actual criteria. Are there any objections?
Does anybody object to reading all the criteria? Good, we want to go home tonight.
We will deem those to be waived. Testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed towards the criteria described above or other criteria in the plan or land use regulations which you believe apply to the decision. failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the council and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. For the applicant, the failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. For the council, are there any declarations of conflict of interest, bias, or ex parte contacts?
So just for the record, as we're talking about ex parte contacts, we've all gone through the area. We've all seen articles about this, discussion and so forth. Are you talking something above and beyond that?
Right, above and beyond that. So. With regard to site visits, unless you have a specific feel for what the site visit did, you don't have to disclose that. If you saw the site and thought that for whatever reason the site wouldn't work or whatever, and you have that specific, you should disclose that. But if it's just general, like I've been by it, there's nothing to disclose.
So if you stop for lunch at Chick-fil-A, you're good to go?
That's good to go. That's
All right.
fine.
Just checking.
Trip to 7-Eleven, that works too.
Okay, so I just looking, okay, we're all good to go.
Okay. For all the participants, prior to the close of the hearing, you need to state any objections to bias, conflicts of interest, ex parte contacts, jurisdiction of the council to hear this matter, or opportunity to be heard. With regard to the timing, I hadn't looked at it for quite a while, so I had to get out the book. We do have different times for speaking for quasi-judicial, and Madam Mayor, I'll help you through that part. But for the audience and for the participants, the applicants have 20 minutes total. They can split that however they see fit. After that, persons in favor, and again, I'll help with that as we go through, Madam Mayor. Persons in favor have 5 minutes per person. You cannot cede your time to anyone else. Persons opposed, 5 minutes per person, and you cannot cede your time. And then other interested persons, again, 5 minutes with that same rule. After that, if the applicant wishes, they have a rebuttal period of 10 minutes total. So are there any questions on the procedures? All right, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Shane Witham then for the staff report, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. Madam Mayor, City Councilors, I'm a little less formal than our city attorney. So I'll just kind of walk you through what's in your packet. It's a pretty straightforward application. It's fairly self-explanatory. The applicant actually brought a couple of boards, but I also took the liberty of printing them out for you in 11 by 17s. They were in front of you when you came in. So the top one that has a little label that says Exhibit E1, that is the current adopted master plan for Area D that is already been approved. The one under that, which is the board on Tracy's side of the room, this is what is proposed with this application and what we've reviewed. So in your council packet, there's a staff report, obviously, that gives some background, some information, and then there's a bunch of attachments that came with it. So I apologize, but that's just the way these things end up being. But there is the applicant submitted information and materials, which included a narrative, site plan, some renderings of building typicals that they're proposing, and also a traffic generation memo. And so that's kind of their materials. And then we also included proposed findings, which I wrote, that are addressing the applicable review criteria. With an amendment, it's a lot less than, say, a brand new master plan. The criteria is really long. The amendment, it's just a few things that we look at. Primarily that you can't have more buildings, you can't have more square footage, you can't generate more traffic. Those are kind of the key things with an amendment versus a brand new master plan. And then in addition, there's a redlined document that had some strike through and some red. Those are what we're proposing as conditions that would come back if council chooses to move forward and direct staff to prepare an order. What we did there, it's a little bit confusing, but since we had an original master plan that then got replaced in 2020 and then amended later in 2020, this is yet another amendment. So what we did is we took the existing conditions that already were passed by order, and the red lines represent just the changes to those. So as you look through your pack, and hopefully you've had some time to do that, they're really isn't a lot of additional conditions that we are proposing. Primarily, the changes are to align the cases, since we now have a new case. We need to reference that. We also brought in some language because our Public Works Department did submit written comments, and they were the only written comments we received. The gist of their comments were that, hey, previous conditions are still in effect. We need to see some information on the traffic signal that's been installed to make sure that's going to work with everything that's proposed. So they kind of wanted to give a little bit of a, before we start building stuff, there are a couple little things that added, and some things about stormwater because the site is a little different. So the original information on stormwater may need to be tweaked. And there's some language about making sure that the existing access that we have for the elevated storage tank remains or is assured. So that's kind of what's in your packet. So to move on to what is being proposed, essentially the existing showed, and we're talking about just changing the south side of Eulalie Drive. So where Chick-fil-A and 7-Eleven are, not doing anything to that side of the street, just the south side. Previously, there was a vision for 8 buildings and being developed with a restaurant, some retail, and then the majority of it with some flex industrial, flex office type of uses. Now that was approved all the way back in 2004 with the very first rendition of the master plan. Included in the applicant's narrative, they actually submitted a letter also from a leasing agent that kind of spoke to the fact that try as they may, they've been unsuccessful in getting interested tenants for that type of a development proposal. So they've kind of shifted, taking advantage of what the market is offering and kind of the general traction of Keizer Station as a whole. And so the proposal on the other side of the room, or your second sheet, shows a reduction in the overall buildings and a move towards more service and retail uses. There are several restaurant uses that are proposed. There is still some retail. The big squarish building, the BR building, they don't identify what that is, but there's an intention that would be developed with an allowed use in the zone, which is kind of generally how conditions are written on these. And then the other one that they identify there is the possibility of a hotel user. So it's pretty straightforward as far as what they're proposing to do. One thing is the way the conditions are written, I would want to just point out the building footprints and the sizes and the general layout of the site are what we approve with the master plan. We don't approve exact tenants. And so if tenants that are proposed were to shift a little bit, that can be done without future needs to amend a master plan, as long as those buildings are the same size and the uses are allowed in the zone. The other thing they have is they have a proposed landscaping plan in there because the one that was before, the parking lot looks different. The buildings are in different spots, so therefore things will be located in different areas. And that is pretty much all I was gonna do, trying to keep it as brief as I can, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have on the applicant's proposal. As my staff report says, we are recommending approval that you would direct staff to come back with an order for adoption on this with finalized findings and conditions and all of those things.
All right, thank you very much. Council questions on the staff report or the information that was contained in our packet? Councilor Kohler?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Witham, this includes sidewalks and bike paths and that type of stuff?
Yeah, within the site, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And with the change in the layout, the stormwater mitigation is also incorporated into this plan, yes?
Yes, but there are conditions that govern the master plan that prior to actual construction that gets reviewed by the Public Works Department, city engineer to make sure that those things are in compliance with our standards.
Okay. The details once you start digging.
Correct. These aren't engineered designs at this stage of approval. It's more than conceptual, but it's not design level yet.
So these aren't construction plans yet, but
Correct.
that's something that's in the conditions. Okay. Thank you very much. Councilor Kohler?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. what can you tell us about the traffic study and how the traffic is going to work here? I've fielded all kinds of questions about traffic just
Yes.
with Area C, and
Sure. Yeah. So I will attempt to answer the best I can with a big caveat. Shane is not a traffic engineer. So, however, in the applicant's materials, they submitted a trip generation memo that was prepared by a traffic engineer, the traffic engineer that did the overall traffic impact analysis for Keizer Station. With the criteria for approval for an amendment, what the criteria says is that when you're doing an amendment and you're shifting buildings around or moving them, you cannot create additional trips beyond what was originally imagined by the approval of the original master plan with the traffic generation. So what they've provided is not a full-blown TIA for the development of all of Keizer Station or anything like that, but rather they have provided proof, if you will, that this proposal is not different than that approval from 2020. So that's what they've provided. That's the bar that we look at.
So it's all, for people who are following along on the bouncing ball at home, it's page 21 of the packet, the Kittleson and Associates memo. 21, 22, and 23 of the packet. It has that analysis.
And do you feel that that analysis is up to date and accurate?
It is. I mean, it is based on the ITE manual, which stands for International Traffic Engineers. Do you remember? I don't know what that stands for, but yes, it's based on standardized engineering practices. It has been reviewed, and yeah.
Okay, Councilor Husband.
Quick question, Mr. Witham, as a point of order. Are we just to consider basically the footprint of the buildings as expressed on the master plan and no real other characteristics therein here as far as any of our decision making tonight?
So the review criteria for master plan amendments, they do speak to. I have to look at it based on is it an increase of square footage? This is not. There's findings that address that. There's kind of a catch-all finding that says any other things that have been changed. So in the proposed findings that I included in your packet, I do spend some time talking the original 2004 approval and Keizer Station Area D in general. There's kind of the Keizer Station design plan, which governs all of Keizer Station as a whole. And when that was developed way back in 2002-ish, I think, there were objectives and purposes for each of the sub areas. And so there was a lot of them for Area A, maybe not quite as many for Area B or Area C or Area D. In Area D, specifically, some of the considerations for the purpose and objectives were traffic considerations was there, listed as traffic considerations. Another one was source of employment opportunities. And those were kind of the main purpose and objective of Area D. And so in the findings, I do spend some time discussing the fact that this proposal has a little different employment vision than the applicant's current proposal. The applicant has They did a pretty extensive narrative, a written statement on why they're doing what they're doing and what they're trying to accomplish. And I think that their information they provided is compelling. The design plan itself doesn't quantify it, doesn't say the employment opportunities should be A, B, C, and D, this kind of employment. It just says employment opportunities. Right. And so clearly the land has been there. This was approved originally, the south side as it sits was approved in 2004 originally, and it's provided 0 employment opportunities. This proposal, they're indicating that they're ready to move forward and start developing, which will clearly provide employment opportunities for Keizer. So though there is kind of a catch-all that you can open up any condition. But yeah, generally it is supposed to be based on review criteria.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Mr. Johnson, I'll go to Council President Starr.
Okay, thank you. To follow up on the question, it's in page 37 of the packet are the proposed findings. And towards the bottom of that page, it talks about the review criteria. So for the next several pages, those are laid out. Those are for the council's consideration. Those are proposed findings. You can, if you do not think the applicants met the burden of proof of showing those, then that's a decision you folks would need to make. But to answer Councilor Hussman's question, that's the review criteria for this case.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council President Starr.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Witham, can you I want to confirm my understanding and make sure I'm clear on definitions. Can you define, and I'm looking at the traffic study, define internal trips?
So that's trips within the site.
So people driving from Target to Chick-fil-A and getting stuck at the stoplight, or what do you mean by an internal,
Yeah, I think it would be within Area D.
okay, so Chick-fil-A to the hotel, are we sure on that?
As I said, I am not a traffic engineer. The applicant may be able to speak further to that with their testimony.
Okay.
It has been reviewed by our engineer. And it's stamped by a traffic engineer.
And then.
And ultimately, sorry.
Okay, so I would love to know also, then confirm definition of pass-by and diverted trips.
Oh, I don't remember.
Okay.
There's, Bill, can you help me with that? So it's been explained to me in the past. But I don't have a good answer for you. I won't try to make one up.
So I'd love to know the answer to that.
Yep.
But I think maybe more what I'm concerned about is in 2004, this traffic study had 755 total trips, and they break down the in and out. I'm not going to look at the net new primary trips. So that was 2004.
Mm-hmm.
When I drive around in Keizer Station now, it's very congested. You get stuck in stoplights.
Sure.
It's almost impossible to get, it's not impossible,
Yeah.
but it's very difficult to get in and out of different areas over there. And I'm, in general, Keizer Station, we know the congestion that Chick-fil-A brought in with it. So I'm struggling to understand how the traffic engineers, do they go and watch the traffic? Do they sit in the traffic? Do they sit at the stoplights?
Sure. Well, I'll speak a little bit generally to it. In this case, no, they didn't do a new TIA for the area because that's not warranted for an application of this nature. One thing, and this does get, I'm going to give you Shane's common man, non-traffic engineer's understanding of this, and maybe this will help. Maybe it will not help because I also frequent Keizer Station quite often. And the one thing to remember with traffic impact analysis, the original TIA, the traffic impact analysis done for the entirety of Keizer Station, also identified a slew of mitigations that would be needed in the horizon of its overall build-out. Some of those items haven't been finished yet. And so when we're looking at TIAs, and what the applicant does with an amendment is to say, okay, an original TIA was adopted, it was approved, it was vetted by ODOT and everybody else that reviewed that with the original. And so that was done, that could have been built out immediately. Obviously, it takes a long time to build things out. So when an amendment comes in and a building gets shifted or square footage moves or reduces or different users are proposed that have different patterns for vehicles, they look at that impact and they hold it against the originally approved traffic impact analysis to determine if it's consistent with it. So that's what they've done with this traffic generation report. It's not a start over from square one kind of look. Does that help answer the question that you have?
I'm not happy with the answer. Is there going to be mitigation? Are they going to do congestion mitigation in the development? Is that?
So with this development, the proposal, there wouldn't be anything immediate that they would need to do. The public street is there, the traffic signal is fully functional.
The one traffic signal on the backside
Yes.
for 900 trips. Okay. Thank you.
For the record, ITE is the Institute of Transportation Engineers, and they produce the trip generation manual that is used in these processes, in the analyses. So you gave me a moment with Google, so Google makes me look smart once in a while. And some of the definitions are there as well. Other questions? All right. Okay, we're going to bring up our applicant who can. Okay, Council President Starr.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Are we able to ask them to do additional congestion mitigation? I know it's not required,
Sure.
but you know my opinion on traffic studies.
I understand. So my role in this is to look at the review criteria and to determine has the applicant met what the review criteria is. In this case, because it's an amendment and what they're proposing, the criteria is simply that it cannot generate additional traffic. And what they've submitted shows that it's actually generating less than was originally approved. I think the question you're asking is more maybe way back when. I can't speak to that. And that's not something that I look at with an application of this nature.
Right. All right, we ready for hearing from our applicants? It is such a pleasure to welcome representatives from the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde and the Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians, and Alan Roothouse. Wonderful to see you again as well. We're going to start off with Chris Lemberg.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of council. I appreciate the opportunity to speak briefly today. I wanted to just briefly introduce myself. My name's Chris Lundberg. I'm one of the tribal attorneys for the Siletz tribe. Been working with them for a long time, and I think I started working with them when we got the original master plan passed in 2004, so it's been quite a while. Just a little brief background on how the project is moving forward is you may know this, but the property is jointly owned by the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde and the Confederated Tribes of Siletz. And we have formed a limited liability company called Chemawa Station LLC, and the board is comprised of 3 members from the Grand Ronde Tribal Council and 3 members from the Siletz Tribal Council. And so today, I'm happy and pleased to introduce Chairman Pigsley from the Siletz Tribe will be speaking about the project, and Michael Langsley, who's there, is a council member of the Grand Ronde Tribe, both board members, and they both have been involved in the project and very helpful getting it moving for a long time. I also want to say that I've been very pleased to work with Shane and Shannon on this project. I feel it's been a very collaborative and engaged process, and I really appreciate the professionalism and courtesies that they've extended throughout this. And on that note, I also note that the amendments that Shane has added to the conditions do put a lot of sort of caveats on the planning department to approve landscaping or approve building designs and that sort of thing. And we have no objection to that because of in part because of the great relationship and collaboration that we've experienced. So if anyone has any questions specifically for me on the narrative or application, I'm happy to answer those. I do appreciate the approval that Mr. Witham has provided for this to move forward. But if there are no questions for me, I'd like to bring up Chairman Pigsley and Councilman Langley.
Thank you very much.
He's letting his elder go first. My name is Dolores Pigsley. I've been here before. It's good to see you, and it's really nice to be invited here to speak on behalf of Chemawa Station. We're very excited about the project, and I hope you're as excited as we are to see it actually happen. We're very committed to what we're doing and to making it one of the nicest sites, as good as across the way at Keizer Station. It's been a real plus for the community. And we're looking forward to providing jobs for people in the area. And I have to say that we're very happy to have Alan working with us to develop those properties. Michael.
So thank you, Mayor and councilors, to speak today. I don't want to take up too much time in case you do have some questions. What I will say is this is one of those projects that when I started, we didn't really have anything really solid. And I'm in my second term. This is my 6th year of being on council. And this is 3 governments finding a way forward to work on a project and an economic development project. And, governments, we don't do things very fast. But this has been a long, long time coming. And I'm really excited about this project because like Chair Pigsley said, it does create jobs. It is an asset. It's an asset for these 2 tribes, and it's an asset for Keizer and for the community as well. So we like to think we do things in a good way, and we think we've demonstrated that on the first phase of the project. And we really, really look forward to working together to find a way forward on this next phase. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, questions for our esteemed guests? All right, thank you. Thank you. And now we'd like to hear from our friend, Alan Roothouse. I think I'm the only one currently on council who was here when you were working on Area A.
Madam Mayor, I think you're correct. It's nice to see you all and staff and to be working in Keizer again. I was 58 when I started, and unfortunately that was 20 years ago, but I'm still here. And we're excited about Area D. It's obviously not as big as Area A was on the one hand, but it's also not going to take 5 years to do. And when we get approval, if it occurs tonight or soon, we expect to be able to start development probably in the mid to late 3rd quarter this year. And most of it will be done all at once. So I would say by the middle to 3rd quarter of next year, Area D should be mostly complete. And we don't have all the space committed yet. In fact, we don't have any signed deals because we had to wait for master plan approval before we could do that. But we have a number of letters of intent, which are non-binding, simple agreements. And I think the tenants are very eager to see this happen. One of the tenants we're going to have, which would, can I step away from the microphone so I can?
Bring a microphone close where if you want to be by the.
That was awesome.
There we go, thank you.
This building right there is Discount Tire, and they are, I think, a firm deal.
Okay.
This building is a car wash, and we have 2 candidates for that. And we haven't decided yet which one we want to do. Those 2 buildings are shop buildings with multiple tenants in them, basic retail. And we have Noodles and Mod Pizza, International House of Pancakes, Xfinity, Habit Burger. Is anybody aware of that tenant? They're new to the area, but they're good. We've seen them elsewhere, and I think they would be a good addition. We had, at one point, a deal with Harley Davidson and the staff a hotel right there. And we're excited about that. They seem to be very interested. And they're looking at either a Spring Hill or a Fairfield Inn, both Marriott products. And so they're looking at both of those. But I think with some of the plans that are going on with the Little League fields and other increasing activity, that a second hotel probably makes a lot of sense.
All right, thank you. Questions for Mr. Rudehouse?
Questions for me?
So you heard some of the questions about the trip generation for these tenants, and how this was put together for what's going to happen within this area. Also, we know that Area A, with some very high trip generating businesses there coming through, also impact that particular intersection. So as your team has looked at this, what has been the thoughts about the operability for our visitors and our residents who will be using this space?
We were very aware when we did the deal with Chick-fil-A that for probably a significant period of time, like a year, it was going to be a major impact that would exceed normal trip generation counts for use of that nature and that size. Obviously, you're aware of what's happened with In-N-Out, and it's still very busy. And Area A ownership, I think, has done a good job in trying to channel traffic to accommodate that. I think that the best thing that happened, we originally had 2 tenants planned for where Chick-fil-A is, and they decided through experience that they needed twice the amount of land and parking that is normal for that kind of use. So that's going to help in the long run. The tenants that I mentioned that we have potential deals with, none of them are of that nature. They should fit within the calculations, which, by the way, are they're significantly lower than what the original trip generation was based on. So we're comfortable with that. The last thing we want to do is create something that's a problem that customers won't show up. So it's important to us too, as well as to the traveling public.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Other questions on what is coming here? I know there's a great deal of excitement to see our 2 tribal nations working together on this economic development opportunity. One other thing, and Councilor Cole reminded me, and you mentioned it, the potential development at Keizer Little League Park that would also turn that into a year-round facility. There is a barrier of some type between Area D and the Little League Park, Portland and Western Rail. So there's been talk about how to do bike ped between this development and the other side. I know that's not part of this plan. We really can't address that here because it's not part of the master plan. But clearly that's going to be a conversation because I think we've got a couple of very important developments. And with that barrier in between, to have that conversation, how we can facilitate the guests at Little League Park being able to enjoy the facilities at Area D as well. So just want to kind of lay that out there, and then I'll go to Councilor Husband.
All I can add to that is I was here when we got the new underpass approved under the railroad, and that's when I lost all my hair.
Cautionary tale, got it. All right, so that could be a very interesting conversation, but that is outside the scope of tonight, as I understand it.
So does that mean we should assign that to somebody that doesn't have a lot of hair?
To start off with, Councilor Husband.
It means it can be done.
It can be done,
Yeah.
yes. And that has been successful over at Tepper. So we've done it before. It won't be our first rodeo with that. But I think when we're looking at traffic impact, the multimodal nature of what's being designed here for people to be able to operate, to enjoy the entire facility, that's going to have an impact, a very positive one, on the economic opportunities for that whole region. So I think that's probably a conversation we're going to have as we're thinking about this moving forward. So.
What's the schedule for improvements to the Little League Park?
Mr. Brown?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. It's actually for discussion later on the agenda today to authorize staff to move forward with creating a letter of intent, which would get us closer to an agreement.
Well, it's probably a good time to start talking to the railroad.
I'm thinking, because they need to be at the table for this conversation, because otherwise we're going to have Frogger going across, and I don't think that's something that the rail is going to be really interested in, and certainly not the guests and residents and the workers at Area D or at our park as well. So probably a good conversation to have. It's an important one to have because of this opportunity. Councilor Hessman?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I'd like to make two more of those opportunities with multimodal accessibility to the site explicit. The first being the MLK Junior Parkway Path or the Salem Parkway Path, which currently exists as a solid line that doesn't quite enter the site, really. It comes out upon that sidewalk at Eulalie Drive. Currently, there's not even a curb cut there. I know this because I have taken that on my bike as a regular trip of mine. If I wanted to get on Eulalie Drive, either I dump into the road, or if I'm going northbound on the side, the safest way that I could do that is to go into the Keizer Permanente driveway, which is not necessarily something I want to do because I might I might be impeding the path of a car. I digress. The idea is, though, that's obviously not a city control facility. That's an ODOT1, but the MLK Junior Parkway Path is a major conduit for bringing people from the south to the north in the city, and therefore it would be an opportune moment for us to seize on its potential and have better access to Area D from that path, such that people who are on a bike, like I am sometimes, or just walking, could enjoy the site a little further. And then it was touched on briefly, I believe, but Keizer Transit Center is effectively across Chamau Road and on an opposite corner from the site. It can be reasonably inferred that people using Keizer Transit Center to get to that site are also largely walking, potentially.
For so many benefits, it's really been a standout for our area, and they're adding some new technology there that's also going to bring a lot of attention to the Keizer Transit Center. So, yahoo! Here we go again, leading the way.
And the ADX.
Yes, the ATX route. So that's going to be added as well. So, winner all around. So thank you for taking that into consideration, some of the questions that we've had regarding the interoperability for people to travel through this development and the associated developments. Appreciate that. Any other questions for Mr. Roothouse? How am I doing on process, Mr. Johnson?
Excuse me, I'm having trouble there. Just fine. I don't know, Mr. Roothouse, did you have somebody else to testify, or? For you folks, okay.
All I have.
We then would move to people in favor, and they would have 5 minutes each.
Okay, so if I don't have anybody else signed up. That was everybody on the sign-up sheet. Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of this development? Okay. Anybody who would like to speak in opposition to this development? Going once, going twice. Comments in general? Crickets. Okay. So nobody's rushing to the front, so I don't have anyone else who would like to speak to this issue.
So, Madam Mayor, I would assume you don't have any rebuttals since there was nobody speaking. I would suggest, Madam Mayor, because there may be some questions, that before you close the public hearing, you might want to have a short discussion on staff, among council, because if you have a question that comes up, you wouldn't call anybody back to the stand there to explain any questions. So you may want to not close the hearing yet, see if there's any further questions from council.
All right. One more bite for City Council. Cross, Duran, Star?
No, I'll just say I'm supportive of the development. I'm just very skeptical of the traffic engineer and his traffic studies. Staff knows my opinion on their studies.
Okay. Kohler?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We probably need to start talking to the railroad.
Husband?
Railroad, ODOT, basically everybody else who deals with wheels. I definitely agree with Councilor Starr. This place is going to get absolutely inundated with traffic. The businesses are in a position to succeed. And that traffic is going to flood into the area, and there will be ancillary impacts, and those impacts will be outside of the Keizer Station footprint. So we ought to buckle up.
Reed?
I have nothing particular to add. Everything I am concerned about has been said, and I am also in support of this.
Thank you. Youth Councilor Sarmiento, any comments?
No, I don't have any comments.
Thank you. You're going to be using this place a lot longer than I will, so I wanted to check in with you. All right, thank you very much. We have nothing further, Mr. Johnson.
Then, if there's nothing further, you should close the hearing, Madam Mayor.
All right. Public hearing is now closed, and we now go to Council President Starr.
Yep. I move the City Council direct staff to prepare an order adopting the proposed Area D Master Plan Amendment approval with conditions.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the Keizer City Council, I've got to get to that language, here we go. Direct staff to prepare an order adopting the proposed Area D Master Plan Amendment approval with conditions. Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed signify by saying no. Hearing no objection, motion passes unanimously. All right, fantastic, thank you.
Historic day.
This is another historic day, indeed. All right, thank you. All right, we will now go to administrative action, item 8A, which is an ordinance adopting the right-of-way utility regulations and a resolution establishing fees for ordinance number 2023, adopting right-of-way utility regulations. And this goes to Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We need to get our consultant and our outside counsel on the phone line, so if we take just a moment to do that.
This is Reba.
Hi, Reba. This is Tracy at the City of Keizer. You're on speaker now.
Sorry, I had to use my computer. Hi.
Grab some water real quick.
I can.
Quick stretch.
Nancy?
She's hard to hear.
Yeah, we can't hear it.
Water.
Yeah. Did I put Nancy's number there on the sheet? Oh.
Okay, now it's turned up.
That's turned up.
Hi, this is Nancy.
Hi, Nancy. This is Tim Wood with the City of Keizer.
Hi, how are you?
Great. You're on speakerphone now.
All right.
Great, thank you.
Let's gather up and
Okay.
Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for the short break there. We have Nancy and Reba both on the phone line. I don't anticipate them making a statement, but I did want them available for questions. I'm going to go ahead and give a brief staff report. I think everybody is familiar with the basics of the right-of-way ordinance and the associated fee resolution. For background, for folks who might not have heard, a little over a year ago, December 21, after a work session, council directed staff to move forward with a code model as opposed to the current franchise model for utility providers in the right-of-way. And we moved forward with that and been working the last several months on that with our consultant Reba Crocker and outside counsel Nancy Werner. We had made substantial changes over the last few months, as was noted earlier by the Salem Electric folks. Appreciate their involvement in that and appreciate our consultant and outside counsel on their work with that. We held a public hearing on March 20, and then council closed the hearing and then continued the discussion and deliberation until tonight. As I set forth in the staff report, the code model avoids having to negotiate individual franchise agreements, which can be time-consuming. It also avoids any unequal treatment by putting everybody on the same set of rules. We did have concern expressed by the providers about paying, even if they don't own facilities in the right-of-way. That's true. However, the business model is such that if someone is using the right-of-way, even if they don't have facilities and paying nothing, then other providers with facilities would be treated unfairly. There was an issue I'll point out. I put a very general, and I mean general, financial impact. It's page 56 of the packet of 200,000 to 500,000 annually. You can see why that rough spread. It's really hard to determine. But I got some impression that there may have been a misunderstanding about how that would work. Basically, that would be, the increase would be for basically telecom users, mainly wireless. Also a somewhat increase for Lumen based on how the percentages work. If PG, Northwest Natural, Salem Electric, they wouldn't be paying an increase. That's not envisioned by this at all. So I want to make sure that was understood. The matters before you tonight for discussion, and either Ms. Crocker, Ms. Werner, or I are available for questions, so I'll just turn it back to council.
thank you very much. I will open it up for questions from council regarding the staff report, the ordinance, or resolution. Councilor Cross?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So my first question is, typically out of these 13 cities that have adopted this right-of-way ordinance, these extra increases to fees, where do those usually go? Who's paying them?
Again, as I indicated, the companies paying those would be the telecom companies, either wireless or the wireline ones. Lumen, for example, is called an ILEC, or Incumbent Local Exchange. They are already paying a fee. Theirs would go up somewhat, but the other ones are not paying anything. Also, and I didn't mention this earlier, there is, in addition to PGE and Salem Electric, there's a possibility of at least one, what we would call wholesale electric service provider that is not subject to the fees now. We don't have a franchise agreement with them, so that would be part of the additional revenue.
Thank you. So I guess I just probably really have comments. We've had about a month of back and forth emails, and my opinion is that this lacks a lot of transparency. We haven't asked for any public opinion. We haven't had any public meetings. I think there would be an undue burden on our residents, which I just can't support from my point of view. I would hope that we pause this resolution or at least say no to it right now. I think that we can find other opportunities to bring in revenue to the city. That's it.
All right. Councilor Duran, did you have any questions or comments at this stage?
I do have some questions, but I'm not ready to bring those up right now. But I've got some concerns about what this is gonna, the tax increases that the residents are gonna see on this. So I'm just still trying to figure out what my real concerns are, other than that.
Sorry.
Follow-up?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just one more thing. As we were going into this, I felt like I heard a lot about like many cities are doing this, many cities are doing that. And 13 of 241 cities is 5%. I'm okay with being that 95%.
Okay. Councilor Starr?
Like Councilor Duran, I still have lots of questions. I have concerns, and I believe that a conversation about revenue generation for the city needs to happen in a broader conversation, that we look at everything all together, not siloed, one issue at a time. I was reminded in a conversation earlier, I guess it was last week, that, and I remember this so well, sitting in Senator Peter Courtney's office in his table with all of his buttons lined out in front of him that he liked to push during meetings. And the one thing that he said is, the process matters. And I know that this has been a long process, but I think that there are places along the way where we could have had a different process, or we could have had different conversations, or conversations about increasing revenue in totality rather than in silos. So to use the words of a very wise, bipartisan leader in our state, I think that the process matters, and I'm not ready to vote.
Mr. Johnson?
We lost someone on the line, so if we could take a brief break and try to get them back.
Okay. We'll press pause.
This is Tim with the city of Keizer. Just giving you that half of the morning.
Yes, we will.
Nancy, are you still there? Are you still with us?
We need to do 2 cell phones, maybe?
Technology.
Yeah. Because we could do 2 cell phones and broadcast them.
So, Tim, no offense to Nancy, but if we can only have one on, I'd like to have Reba on. We can call Nancy if we have a question.
And we could get her on a cell phone maybe and broadcast that, put it on speaker.
We have Reba? Okay. All right.
Okay. We're back in business?
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. Sorry for the interruption again.
Yep. Technology is this thing. So following up on the,
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. Sorry for the interruption.
oh, somebody's we gotta mute that. I'm listening to myself.
Following up on the,
You need to tell her to mute her.
Got it? All right, there we go. To some of the comments about right-of-way versus franchise, one of the issues has been less about revenue generation. Agreed that, I mean, we all are concerned about our general fund, but that was not the impetus when this got started. It was about going from a franchise model, which is the individual agreements with all of the different users of the rights of way. Rights of way belong to the people of Keizer. Franchising is a model that we've had conflicts in the past where we've had to make decisions about essentially winners and losers or territories for different service providers. The right of way allows us to manage our right of way, the property that belongs to the people of Keizer for the benefit of the people of Keizer. And that businesses that do business in the right of way can be managed by this model rather than not only looking at what's happening in the right of way, but also getting involved in the business of the business. So this, in my mind, does simplify, and we know what we're about. We're not in the business of energy generation. We're not in the business of telecom. That's not what the city does. We have public spaces that it is much more expedient for utilities to use this public space to be able to do business, either providing water, sewer, power, gas, and telecom in those spaces, rather than have everybody have to buy their own right-of-way or their own space for that to conduct business. That's what is happening in my mind about what right-of-way is about. So going to a right-of-way management model where we have consistency, transparency, we have that ability to flex with the changes in technology. And Mr. Johnson, you mentioned another electric utility. I wasn't even aware of that. But that kind of goes to the point of what we heard about early on in this process, is that we had a number of telecom in particular, but our technologies are changing. This will allow us, we're talking about right-of-way. How do you want to be in the right-of-way? You're in the right-of-way. Do what you do. That's what my brain is about here. And to be able to flex with the changes that are happening in our technology, in our industries going forward. So when this first came to my attention was several years ago when we were talking about, we had some conflicts. We had to change how we do franchising, and we have to charge our own utilities franchise fees to show that we are consistent across all of the different utilities using rights of way. So that's why our water bill, our sewer bill, our stormwater bill also includes the same fees that other businesses are charged in the public right of way. That's where my head's at for this. And we've had businesses able to be in the right of way and not pay for that privilege. And I think that's the wrong word. I probably shouldn't use that because I think it has a legal definition. So I'm gonna back that one down. To use the property that belongs to the people of Keizer. So that's where I've been reading this. That's the lens that I've been coming at this with. How are we going to make sure that we are managing the space that belongs to the people and get the services, the essential services that we have running through those spaces where they can do business effectively, efficiently, and with predictability. And that's one thing we've been really blessed with, especially with we're looking at our electricity providers who are here tonight, is that predictability and that reliability. And we want to be good partners in that as well. So that's where my head's on this, and we've had a long-standing, this has been a long time coming. We've had to be developing this right-of-way ordinance. Just because only 13 have gone this direction here in Oregon, I believe that we're going to see more changes toward this more narrowly defined rather than franchising where we have to get into the business of the business. And I really don't think that we want to be in that space. Businesses are going to continue to evolve and change, and I want to be flexible for that. So that's where my thinking is going at this point. As far as questions that I've got on this, I really don't have any, except that what I did hear from the electricity providers is to have that conversation, up or down on the right-of-way ordinance. What does this look like for our relationship going forward? What does this look like for the business arrangement? And it sounds like additional conversations can be had. We built some flexibility into the right-of-way ordinance where if a particular industry, such as electricity, still needs some time in that changeover from the franchise model to the right-of-way model, that we have that flexibility to do it. So, and that's a plus in my book. So there we go. I'm going to go Councilor Kohler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have some concerns. This is going to affect all the utility companies, is that correct?
All the utility companies would be subject to the right-of-way ordinance. With regard to the fees, again, the electric, gas utilities would not see a change. So it would be the wireless companies and some type of increase for Lumen, the wire company. The electric company who's not under a franchise agreement would begin paying under that. As far as I'm aware, nobody else would have a fee increase. If you are saying would be subject to it, yes, they'd all be subject to the rules. And that's why we made those changes. And I do want to take this opportunity to mention, and I think the mayor was alluding to this, we can amend this too. So if there's concerns that we didn't address that need to be addressed, I mean, it's a living document. It can be amended in the future.
Well, I just noticed that Northwest Natural Gas isn't here. I mean, do they have any objections to this?
They had some requests for changes, and we made some of those changes. They did not take the same active role as the electric companies, but they were in contact with us.
And did we hear much from Comcast?
Comcast is different by federal law. So they're entitled to a franchise agreement. So they would not be subject directly to these rules.
And that's the case with tower usage also, or is that
I'm sorry?
something? Tower usage, or is that something separate?
The tower?
Cell
you mean cell
towers.
towers? So cell towers that are on private property are not regulated by the city except for a planning approval. There are the potential for what's called small cell applications, which are smaller, don't cover the area, but some cell companies are using those. If the small cell antenna would go in the right-of-way, if it goes on private property, the antenna itself is not part of the right-of-way ordinance. But if it's in the right-of-way, it would be part of that, and that's in the ordinance.
So because I don't see any cellular companies here, wireless carriers, does that mean they don't have any objection?
No, they came at the last hearing, and they've submitted objections.
Yeah, so, but not enough to, apparently there's not concern enough about it to be here tonight.
I will mention, in fairness to all the participants, this is not a public hearing. That public hearing was closed. Under public comments, we kind of have to allow any comments that somebody wants to talk about. So I wouldn't take their lack of attendance tonight as agreement. They did object in person in March 20, and then they've submitted additional material.
Well, that's what I thought yeah, from last meeting we had this. Are the cellular companies that are using landline wires and such that go through our area, are they currently paying the companies that are providing that for them?
I would presume so. They're not paying the city for the use of the right-of-way, though, under the current process.
And so people that have a wireless bill, if their company currently isn't paying the city for right-of-way, then their bills would significantly go up probably?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily use the word significantly, and of course, the companies have, are not required to pass that through. I will say that it's unlikely that they would, given past practices, and they're entitled to pass that through.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Husband?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Right-of-way, as best I understand it, is an intangible asset that the city is allowed to operate, not in a manner it sees fit, of course, it's governed by state and federal law, but a little bit in the manner of a park in some ways. There aren't necessarily ball fields or fences, but not unlike a park, intangible assets do require some upkeep. They do require some maintenance, and they do require the long-term vision of how they may be used for the purposes of residents. I'm definitely not beyond remembering the days when cell phones were new and novel and not a major part of our telecommunication infrastructure. That's not as old as this city is. And yet here we are in the modern ecosystem where we talk about 5G and reliable high-speed internet to devices in our pockets and on our wrists. So to me, doing the right thing with respect to right-of-way implies that we do have somewhat of a flexible and malleable sense of upkeep and sense of stewardship with respect to this intangible asset. And I do believe, based upon conversations I've had, that Mr. Johnson, Ms. Crocker, and team have covered those bases. I would also like to say that with respect to the publicity of this process, we're elected officials for a reason. I think that we can vote on this in our knowledge, in our eminence, and in the case of this counselor, in our bedeviled ignorance, as we so choose. And we do not need to make telecommunications experts out of 40,000 citizens to be able to come to a substantive conclusion on this issue.
Okay. Councillor Reed.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just most of it's already been said, and most of my thoughts, but I just kind of wanted to reiterate that this is not just about the revenues. I'm kind of where you are in terms of this is more of a management practice, and the revenue is, frankly, just it is a bonus. The reason for this whole process, the reason was not as a revenue generator. It was secondary to the process, and I think the process has been what it should be. We've taken a long time to get where we are. I think we've had input from all of the stakeholders. We have been very responsive. Mr. Johnson has been very responsive in drafting this ordinance to the stakeholders, and I think that it's been a very democratic process, and I really appreciate that. From what I'm seeing, when we have for-profit companies using a public right-of-way without paying, that's what we're remedying here. We shouldn't have for-profit companies basically squatting on a public right-of-way. We should have these people paying their fair share. It should be predictable. It should be flexible. And there is flexibility built into this ordinance as far as people who need the franchises will have the franchises. There is ability to amend these as necessary. There is ability to adapt with unforeseen technological developments. And so I think that this is everything that it should be, and I will be supporting it.
Thank you. I'll put you on the spot, but I'll give you an opportunity. Youth Counselor Sarmiento, do you have any thoughts as you've been listening?
Well, I say I agree with Ms. Reed that they should be paying their part when using the public rights of utility.
Right. Thank you very much. Additional questions or comments before we put a motion on the table? Counselor Duran, you said you had some questions. Now's the time.
I do have one question. Now, one thing I'm worried about is, litigation on this. If the city is brought into litigation, is there any liability on row consultants to help in that matter?
There wouldn't be any liability on consultants to
Well,
help.
is row consultants, would they have to help in the defense of this?
No, that would be kind of unusual. I can tell you of the 13.
They're benefiting from this with their,
So the consultant is not the attorney, though.
Right.
Okay, so we took our advice from special counsel. I can tell you that the 13 cities have done this. There's been no litigation involving that code.
I believe there has been, so that's why I'm asking, so.
The litigation you might be thinking of was not in connection with code adoptions.
Okay.
What was it? I guess that begs the question, what was it related to?
It was involving an FCC order called the 621 order. And if you want to go into the details of that, I would have to ask our consultant. I remember it at the time. It was a few years ago, but that memory has left me now. But it was not in connection with this issue.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Cross?
Well, I did a deep Nancy Drew dive into this, and I found, and it might not be exact, but I will tell you that 3 cities did go into litigation. Oregon City, so how the outcomes were, I couldn't find that. City of Corvallis with AT&T, and Beaverton went into that. So I'm not saying that it went positive or not positive, but
With
it did
regard
go
to
into
the code
litigation.
model?
Yeah.
Okay. Reva, are you there on the line? And
Dropped on mute.
hello?
I am.
Reva, did you hear that last comment?
I'm sorry?
Did you hear the last comment? About, apparently, Councilor Cross believes that there was.
Let me mute my computer. I did hear the last comment. Beaverton, do you want me to address those 3 cities?
Yes, please.
I can't hear, I'm
The
sorry.
3
I can't hear you
cities?
and my phone at the same time.
So, Reba, you need to turn down your. We getting feedback from the broadcast.
Okay, sorry about that. I can't hear you guys on my phone or,
Right.
is that better?
Right. So, Councilor Cross, could you name those 3 cities again?
So when I was looking up just different, the last one being Woodburn, when they passed this ordinance, there was 1 or 2 counselors that were against it, and it was because of the open litigation with Beaverton and Comcast. Beaverton, I'm sorry, and then also Corvallis. And then before that, there was an Oregon City litigation. So I guess my question to you is, with these real ordinances, I'm not even asking about the outcome, how many because of have gone to litigation?
Well, if I may, I would like to address those 3 situations. The Beaverton contest was regarding the 621 order, which revolves around cable. It wasn't about the code itself. The Corvallis AT&T issue was regarding the small cells and a master lease for the small cells, not related to the code. I mean, it's kind of related to the use of right-of-ways, but not the code. And then the Oregon City issue, I believe that was a while ago, and that was in reference to Oregon City charging the county for use of the right-of-way for the water services. And I believe Nancy was the attorney for Oregon City on that case. So that involves the county and the city.
So I guess I'll ask this question a different way. Would these litigations happened without pushing through this real ordinance? Whether, I'm not saying who's right or wrong, would those have existed?
The Beaverton and Corvallis would have happened whether or not the row ordinance was adopted in those cities. The Oregon City may or may not have. I'm not too intimate with that. Like I said, Nancy was the attorney on that. I don't know if Oregon City had a agreement with the county for the use of the right-of-way or not before the code was adopted or after.
So I don't know much more about that other than my memory. That was kind of a government against government issue. Clackamas County felt that they shouldn't be charged, so it wasn't directly on this issue.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, good question. I'm looking at Councilor Duran again, make sure that your questions got answered. Okay. Other questions? Okay, so what I'd like to do, if council is willing to do so, is to put a motion on the table so we can debate it. And that would be, Council President Starr, are you willing to put that motion on the table?
No, I am not, Madam Mayor.
Councilor Reed.
I move that the Keizer City Council adopt ordinance number 2023, adopting right-of-way utility regulations.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the Keizer City Council adopt ordinance number 2023, adopting the right-of-way utility regulations. Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed signify by saying no.
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 Hands on no's. Motion fails, 4-3. So the no's are Cross, Duran, Starr, Kohler. So that means that the resolution is moot. All right. Thank you very much. Councilor
Thank you,
Kohler?
Rita.
You all right?
Excuse me. I wouldn't mind revisiting it in the future, but no, but eventually I'll be okay.
You can't talk and eat candy at the same time.
Define okay. I'm not sure I'll ever be okay. But
Are you choking, Dan?
no,
Okay.
I really wouldn't mind revisiting this in the future, but right now there's too many questions for me to vote yes for it.
Agreed.
So in a follow-up then, those questions need to be put in writing and gotten to our city attorney, so those can be addressed. If the council is interested in continuing this conversation about this issue, we need to have direction about what is needed for that next step. Because the process looked very thorough from my point of view, so I think that needs to be spelled out. Otherwise, the staff's not going to know what the deficit is.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, but I think I was clear in what I requested about having a bigger conversation about revenues.
Councilor Cross?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not interested in pursuing this at this time.
Okay. So aside from revenue in general, relative to the right-of-way ordinance in particular, what needs to be addressed?
Well, I heard in our discussion, I heard it that the right-of-way belongs to the citizens. So my question is, then why would they be paying? They pay we see it on our bills now with the franchise fee. If the right-of-way belongs to the citizens, I don't feel comfortable asking the citizens to pay for something additional. I need time to process that. I just don't understand why the fees would be passed on to the citizens. That doesn't feel comfortable to me. And then if we don't want to, I also heard it that we don't want to be in the business of being in the business. So then I don't understand why we're being asked by certain utilities to write a franchise agreement. If the right-of-way keeps us out of that business and knowing what their business is and running that business, then why would they be asking us to continue including them in a franchise fee agreement? Those are my two big questions.
Well, and as I understand it, and again, it's a moot point now, but as I understand, going from the franchising to the right-of-way, the utilities have put a tremendous amount of infrastructure in to provide electric service. So over time, though, what we're seeing in a number of industries is a change in how service and product is being delivered. So going from a franchise, which was in the old model, and I could get this wrong, but this is how I understood it, you had different service areas and different utility providers responsible for certain areas. PGE covers certain areas in Keizer. Salem Electric covers other areas in Keizer. I live in Salem Electric service district. So where PGE is, Salem Electric is not. And that's basically how that developed over time. However, with technology changes and so forth, we are getting different models of delivery. So hearing about another electric company, we've seen tremendous changes from the Comcast days of, okay, this is my franchise, this is where I put my cable and so forth, and that was it. Now we have all the telecoms and a variety of businesses using space in the right-of-way in order to deliver their product. In this case, is the telecom interconnectivity. So the model, even of the businesses, have changed over time. But by being in the franchise world, we're very much limited on how we then engage with those businesses who are conducting business in public space. That's the difference in my mind. So if we want to understand that better or understand how that has evolved over time, and again, there was conversation prior to people coming on council. I know this is also a disadvantage, but over time, we are going to continue to see changes, and we've seen the federal government in particular and state regulations very slow to change, very slow to evolve as our business models have changed in many, many areas. That's why right-of-way to me is much cleaner and straightforward. This belongs to the people. We have businesses conducting business in our rights-of-way. They're going to help maintain those rights-of-way. That's my simple brain. That's where I go. So that's pretty much it. All right. Any follow-up thoughts? I would encourage you to get them to our city attorney for further review so we can understand what, if anything, would happen from here. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll go ahead and address those questions at a later date. And as the Madam Mayor indicated, if you have additional ones, please get them to me.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. All right, we are now going to go to item 8B, which is the council liaison means of attendance. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. This item is before you as asked to put it on the agenda by several council members. And just to give a brief background on current rules, the City Council has rules about attendance, in attendance, and physically present at meetings. But the city committees, boards, and committee liaisons under Section 18.2 of the council rules doesn't really speak to in-person attendance. So what we're talking about is not members of city committees, boards, but council liaisons that are non-voting members of a committee and that report back to the city council on the work of the committee and then also update the committees on what's going on with the city council. So what we're looking for is if the council would like us to bring back an amendment to the council rules that requires in-person attendance by liaisons, then we can do that. But it is a policy decision at your discretion. Virtual attendance is not uncommon in the state. The state allows attendance and voting through telephonic or video meetings. We have several exclusions or exceptions, I should say, for city council meetings, but it's by exception that it's allowed. So with that, I'll turn the discussion over to the council and happily take any direction that you have on that item.
All right, thank you very much. Comments on the staff report or this proposed change to the council rules and procedures? Councilor Duran.
Just as we've seen today with using the telephone, it doesn't, you don't get the whole feel of what is working, what's going on in the meeting. So, I felt pretty disappointed at what we had here with two people on the phone that could have given us, maybe a little bit more in-depth conversation if they would have been here. So that's my reason behind this. If it's a Zoom meeting and everybody's on Zoom, things work a little bit better. If it's one person calling in, I have never had that work real well if you need to correspond with that person that's on the phone. So this is why I think this is something that needs to be discussed.
Thank you. Councilor Cross or Starr?
I actually didn't even think about that, Kyle, but I would absolutely echo what you just said. There's something about looking someone in the eyes, whether it be Councilor Starr or you, and knowing and being able to have real conversations besides someone on the phone. We do not live in a black and white world. Does it mean that, yes, you can say you're on vacation, things happen, maybe you had an emergency, but I think that it is our responsibility to give our best version of ourselves while in city council.
Councilor Starr, Council President Starr.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I too believe that our responsibility as council liaison should be in person. I can use an example just on Thursday. I don't know, attending the library board meeting, I don't think I would have been able to have a couple of quick little conversations with people and exchange ideas or suggestions, or I can, connect with me later. I can give you a name or I can help you with that. That wouldn't have been possible if I had been on the phone. And I think we owe it to the committees that we're assigned to be there in person. Being on the phone and dropping and not being there when they have a question for us as a city councilor who's assigned to that group or that committee, that's just not, I don't think that's appropriate. So I support the amending the council rules to require in-person attendance by the council liaisons.
Okay, thank you. Any further? Councilor Kohler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think anytime that we can have in-person attendance, it's always going to have a better result. And as counselors, I think we make a commitment to be here. We need to be here. As far as the telephone experience we had today, had they actually been here and we could look them in the eye, that may have been a different result.
We're going to go Councilor Husband, then Councilor Reed.
I'm speaking purely from my own self-interest here, Madam Mayor and Council, in that with my life and my job, which I have tried to be transparent about everybody, I have a commute. It's on I-5 and 217. It's not as fun. I do the absolute best I can, and there have been instances where work has flatly conflicted with the timing of a committee meeting. So I do my absolute best to represent everybody in the committee meetings, and if not, I try and circle back with committee members to hear out their concerns. If that doesn't work, they can absolutely let me know, as can everybody in this room.
Thank you. Counselor Reed?
Thank you, Madam. Oops, sorry. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think I'm a little concerned about some of the underlying assumptions in this. That number one, that this would be the new way of doing business. I don't see that. I see this as an option, and frankly, I think it would be better to have the option to call in if I wasn't able to make a committee meeting. It would be better for me to be able to call in with my familiarity with the committee rather than to have a substitute on the committee, because I'm more familiar with that than a substitute might be on council. So I don't think anybody is suggesting that this be the new way of doing business. I think it's always going to be preferred that we meet in person, and I think that that would definitely always be preferred. And if this is an option and allows things to be more flexible and to be able to do our jobs in the most to do the best that we can in our jobs, I think that this would be a good option to be able to do virtually.
Thank you. Thoughts? Youth Counselor Sarmiento?
I agree. I think it's a good option for people to be able to call in or virtually join the meeting. But I also think it is better and it would have a better outcome if the people would come and attend the meetings in person.
Thank you.
But it is a good option to have, I would just say.
So I agree. I personally feel that it's preferred in person, where I try to remember that we are 7 volunteers with lives and life happens, that we need to have the flexibility so that council service doesn't look to people considering serving in this manner, in this kind of capacity, don't see it as a barrier. That we do have some flexibility to be able to use technology, even though it can be very imperfect and very difficult to maneuver. In addition, I appreciate this council in particular. Not all councils have been as attentive to letting the rest of the group know when they're going to be absent or they've been delayed, and put a call out going, hey, life happened, can somebody swap in for me? And I really appreciate the flexibility that the team has had in stepping in for one another. And it's incumbent upon us to do so. It's in our rules. Not everybody has always been as good about that as you all have. And I really appreciate that, because again, it's that transparency, it's the communication with the team. Saying, life happened, I need somebody to swap in, or can I call in tonight, life happened, and at least I can continue knowing it's last minute for someone else to drop everything and go cover a meeting. I appreciate making this a priority, saying that it is preferred that we be in person, but I think we have to allow for life, because it just happens and we can't predict it. But also, I think to me, the biggest thing is putting out the call, communicating with the team that when life has happened, that you need someone to cover. And at least show up in one manner or another. So I'm just worried about creating barriers to people being able to serve on city council, barriers that don't need to be there. So that's my biggest concern. With that, I will open it up to next steps. Council President Starr?
I move that the council direct staff to bring back an amendment to the council rules requiring that council liaisons to committees, boards, and commissions attend meetings in person.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded that Keizer City Council direct staff to bring back an amendment to the council rules requiring that council liaisons to committee, boards, and commissions attend meetings in person. I have a friendly amendment. And taking the word requiring and adding that, I should have I've written this down. I want to add something to the effect of that's his preferred, but that the people can require virtually under circumstances, and they need to check with the chair and the council for possible substitutes.
Madam Mayor, with all due respect, I will not accept that friendly amendment. I have not seen that happen to date, so I don't believe that changing that verbiage will change. So I will not, I'm not going to accept that with all due respect.
Understood. And I'm not going to be able to support it in this form, making it just a requirement flat out without flexibility for people to deal with life situations.
We have that flexibility, though, already in the rules to get.
Right.
But but people that are liaisons need to be at their meetings. And so I'm sorry, I can't accept it.
Okay. Then I will move that we amend the motion to change the word requiring to preferring, that council liaisons to meeting boards and commissions attend in person.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded that the motion be amended, changing requiring to preferring that council liaisons to committees, boards, and commissions attend meeting in person. All in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, signify by saying no.
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 Motion fails, or the amendment fails. We're back to the original motion. Any further discussion? Oh, the second was Councilor Reed.
No, it was just the no votes were
Oh, the no
Star,
votes
Duran,
were-
Cross, and Kohler. Thank you.
Yep. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, signify by saying no.
No.
So the noes are Reed, Husband, Clark. Motion passes. Okay. This takes us to item 8C, support for House Bill 3113, which I just checked and it just had a public hearing on April 6th, which is where it is in the legislative circus known as legislative session. Yeah.
Yes.
It's been a ride. It's still in play, yeah. That's what, another thing I checked to make sure it's still in play, and it is. City Manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. House Bill 3113 appropriates money to the general fund to the Department of Transportation. This was done under a pilot project for $50 million in 2021. Another $100 million is being requested to be put into this fund. Right now, it's called the Great Streets Program, and it is for arterial routes that are under the state maintenance. However, the League of Oregon Cities who supported this bill asked that it be extended to streets that are operated by cities that are not maintained by ODOT. So under the revisions by the League of Oregon Cities, Keizer would be eligible. But I was asked to put this bill on here just in a neighborly way to even if we were not eligible for it, so that because it was a good program for cities throughout the state. The bill is currently assigned to the Joint Committee on Transportation. The public hearing was held, and it'll be forwarded to the Ways and Means Committee if it's voted out of the Transportation Committee. And we would recommend a support position on House Bill 3113, and a letter is attached that would support that bill.
Thank you very much. As a member of MWAC, the Mid-Willamette Area Commission on Transportation, there has been support at MWAC for this bill. League of Oregon Cities has worked extensively on that, and I do sit on the Transportation Policy Committee for League of Oregon Cities. This will benefit, should it pass and the funding get to some of our small jurisdictions, it will benefit them to be able to make the improvements within their city limits that they cannot do right now, and there's no way on this earth that they ever individually will have the funding necessary to do the urban upgrades that they desperately need. This impacts travel for Keizer residents as we travel between cities in our region, and it will strengthen our region for safety for our neighboring cities, and that's why I support this bill, and I would like to have the city of Keizer sign on. Any further questions?
Madam Mayor, do we know, it said the League of Oregon Cities supported this bill and asked for its benefits to be extended to local roads. Do we know if that amendment, if that was
Not at
made?
this time. It has not been amended, so that's still something that could happen. It's still in the first chamber.
Got it.
So it's
Okay.
still at the House. Right now, they're looking pretty much at leaving it at the great streets. We have the Association of Oregon Counties is very much in favor of this because we have so many small cities that are outside of the metropolitan planning organizations that need these funds to do the improvements that they need. Amity is one that immediately comes to mind, and several others like that, that are on state highways that don't have a snowball's chance in Hades have ever been able to put in bike lanes, sidewalks, just safety features within their city limits.
Got it.
Once some of those key ones are done, we want to encourage ODOT to continue this program because it would allow for cities where you have a main street like River Road to be able to do, or Cherry, to be able to do projects of the same nature. And it's a great program. They call it urban upgrades. There's all sorts of names for this type of improvement to your roadways. I'm thinking of Wheatland. That's a Great Streets project. It just isn't on a state highway, but I think Wheatland would be a perfect example. And Mr. Lawyer's nodding his head. But I think right now we have to get in line behind some of these small cities that don't have the kind of funding that we have available to us through the metropolitan planning organizations. Amity is in ACT, but it's not in the MPO. Good question. Councilor Kohler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think any opportunity we have to possibly get some more sidewalks put in would be a great thing.
Thank you. Council President Starr, motion on the table?
I move to authorize the mayor to sign a letter of support on behalf of the Keizer City Council for House Bill 3113, a bill with edits recommended by the League of Oregon Cities to extend it to local main streets that are not state highways.
Second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded by the Keizer City, moved and seconded to authorize the mayor to sign a letter of support on behalf of the Keizer City Council for House Bill 3113, a bill with edits recommended by the League of Oregon Cities to extend it to local main streets that are not state highways. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed signify by saying no. Motion passes unanimously. Turn the page. Item D, which is a resolution adoption of 2023 and 2024 City Council goals and work plan. City Manager.
Madam Mayor and Council, last Monday, you met in work session to create the City Council short and long-term goals and council work plan. The Section 20 of the council rules requires the City Council to set goals at a minimum of every 2 years that coincided with mayoral terms of office. So it was an effective session at coming up with the short and long-term goals, and the past practice has been to adopt it by resolution. So there's a resolution in front of you with the work plan, short and long-term goals as worked out last Monday.
All right, thank you very much. Questions or comments? Okay, Council President Starr.
I move that the Keizer City Council adopt Resolution R 2023, adoption of 2023 and 2024 City Council goals and work plan.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded that the Keizer City Council adopt Resolution R 2023, adoption of 2023 and 2024 City Council goals work plan. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed signify by saying no. Hearing no objection, motion passes unanimously. Item E, resolution authorizing the city manager and city attorney to work with the Lava Dome and For the Love of the Game to prepare a letter of intent. City manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. On April 3rd, you had a presentation about the Lava Dome and have had some time to think about it. The Lava Dome is a registered 501c3 that received the official status, I think, in November of 2022. Their initial proposal was to enclose 4 fields at Keizer Little League Park, and with the ultimate goal of putting artificial turf on the entire facility. We have been working together with our current operator of Keizer Little League's Park For the Love of the Game, and they've expressed their willingness to do whatever is best for Keizer. So what we're recommending at this point is that the council give us guidance on working forward to a letter of intent. And that letter of intent would come back to council for approval, would also serve the Lava Dome as they seek revenues and investment into this facility that hopefully that would suit their needs as we work towards a more permanent agreement. What I also wanted to get from the council were some goals and considerations that you'd like to see in an agreement or letter of intent. And I put a few 4 examples in there, whether the council would like some local participation in the governing body of the nonprofit association, or they actually mentioned last week that they wanted to ensure affordable participation by Keizer residents. So is that something you'd like us to put in? Basically, any guidance that you'd like us to consider in that letter of intent, we'd love to hear from it now if the council's pleasure is to move forward towards that letter of intent.
Thank you very much. Comments for the letter of intent development? Councilor Duran.
I guess, yeah, the affordability would be a big issue for me. Is over the years, the Little League associations have had a hard time coming up with the funding and it may not be, it may be the Little League, the associations themselves causing this issue, but I want to make sure that that is not something that we have to deal with in the future. With having a expensive facility, that we really try and make sure that it's affordable for the kids. And another concern I have is, as we work through this, having 2 different operators that we're working with on this needs to get ironed out probably sooner rather than later. And I understand with Love of the Game saying that they'll do whatever. I just want to make sure that we kind of have a path that we're working for on how this is going to work.
Thank you. And for the record, Mr. Walker did text me this afternoon and would have been here, but they have illness in the family and decided that sharing was not caring. So he's not here tonight. Councilor Cross.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question, or I even guess comment, because I'm a little bit behind on all of this, is that I would like to hopefully, in these agreements, really have our Keizer kids playing out there. I got invited to watch a Cal Ripken tournament out on our fields this past weekend that were from South Salem, and our Keizer kids weren't even playing in Keizer. So that was kind of disappointing. So that's just my feedback there.
So that goes along with the affordable participation used by Keizer residents. So I'm hearing that. Councilor Kohler.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. One of the things that's concerned me a lot is the number of parents that have said, we can't even play on our fields now because they're too expensive for us to use. So they're using parks and facilities in other cities. That really bothers me.
Okay, bring them home. Anything else? Councilor Reed?
Just to be clear, if we are going to make provisions for our local Keizer residents, we need to be clear about what that means and not have loopholes like, oh, I have one Keizer kid on my team, that therefore I should be able to take advantage of that. So we need to make sure to be clear about what that means if we do put those provisions in, and I do believe that we should. And so, yeah.
So definitions are going to be important for how that works out. We've had those conversations in the past with Love of the Game, and prior to that, when the baseball organizations are running it, what does that look like? How is it managed? So I think for me, the bigger thing that I think will be very clear in this will be the economic model. So not only in building it, but what is the vision for the long-term operability and sustainability of the facility, based on what we're hearing, because it would be able to be used 365, which is different from the fields right now, which just got soaked again this afternoon. That's part of the business model as well. So I think that when you have a facility that's going to have that long-term or that higher level of use, this could look a lot better for just economically being able to keep it operational. One of the problems that we have right now is it pours in the afternoon, everything's off. So, and even if we are getting a little bit of revenue off of reservations, we're losing it. So, Councilor Husband?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I hope my mic is on okay.
Yes.
Mr. Brown, I would also be interested in hearing some of the Lavinum nonprofits, some of their goals related to DEI initiatives, if they have even come up with any, along the lines of what Councilor Duran and others were talking about. Affordability is definitely a piece of that, but I am curious if they have overarching goals related to those ideals.
Yep, Madam Mayor, they are here and could speak to that. They actually do have goals adopted and on their website for DEI, but if the council would like to entertain them, answer that.
Would you like to invite them up to elaborate? They are here.
I just have, before we do that and prolong the conversation, I just want to define what needs to go into the letter of intent, or if a lot of what we're talking about actually then would actually translates into an agreement should the letter of intent come to fruition. Because I want us to not get bogged down in some of the operational details right now, but maybe I'm just curious where that comes in.
Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So a letter of intent can be as detailed or undetailed as you like. The whole idea, though, behind a letter of intent is that you're not going to get to the final agreement. And the purpose of it is so that both sides move forward in good faith, knowing the basic outline of the agreement. I would anticipate, and Mr. Brown may have a different idea, or Lava Dome or Love of the Game may have a different idea too, that we could address these kind of concerns generally. But we may want to get into the details of the letter of intent if it's a specific issue. Right now, and I don't have the agreement with me, but there is a distinction made, some definitions about Keizer versus non-Keizer in the current agreement. So we could revisit that if that's not working. That was discussed long ago, and so if that's not working now, or maybe it would work, but maybe it's not being enforced. But it really only has to do with the fees, not with who uses it, if you see what I'm getting at. So the fees are higher for non-Keizer. Unfortunately, I can't tell you how non-Keizer is defined without the agreement. But I think that can be addressed in a letter of intent.
Does that answer your question? Huh?
And maybe we do bring them up.
All right, come on up. Love to hear from you, and you've been hearing some of the conversation, and good to see you, and thank you for hanging with us tonight. We kind of missed our bio break here.
So to answer, thank you. We were not anticipating speaking. We were just here to be flies on the wall, but thank you for the opportunity. So in regards to DE&I, it's extremely important to us. As a educator in the state of Oregon, as I hold a master's in education and have been an educator since the late 90s. Access is extremely important, not only for those that are less fortunate, but also those outside of our norms. One of the things that's important to us that we have spoken a lot about is the need to have adaptive sports and continue to have adaptive sport in the state. So there's adaptive soccer, there's adaptive skiing. We want to make softball, baseball adaptive as well. Making the sport accessible to those that are less fortunate or don't have opportunities to pay higher fees if they want to play travel ball, depending on what level they want to play at. So having scholarship opportunities. The other thing that's important to us is we have a junior board for a reason, because the voice of our youth is important to us. We feel that meeting their needs is more important than meeting our needs. So they are a huge part of our mission, vision, and value for our nonprofit. We did this as a nonprofit because it's not about us. It's about the community of Keizer. It's about the communities in Oregon that we want to service. It's about the communities outside of Oregon that we can as well service.
Thank you. And thank you for reminding us about the junior board too. I think that was an important point to bring forward. Well, we have them. Ask away.
I would love to, when you're looking at accessibility and inclusivity, to consider different forms of guardianship that might exist. So sometimes it's a challenge to get approvals from the state of Oregon, right, for children and youth that are in the foster care system to play. So just keeping, it's not a challenge, it's just time consuming. So maybe just keeping that in mind, and that's one demographic as well, adoptive placements as well. So guardianships, kinships, all of that. Thank you.
For sure. The other really big piece to us is there's not a lot of ethnic diversity in softball, especially in Oregon. And our partnership with Siletz and Grand Ron is very important to us, and that's why we hightailed right after they were done. We want to bring more opportunity to our Latinos, to our African Americans, to our Native Americans, so that when kids look at the sport, they see themselves. And part of the biggest thing that deters families is the fees. And so having scholarship opportunity for that reason is so important to us, so that nobody is left behind.
I'm going to go to Councilor Kohler and then Councilor Cross. Did you have something? Okay, Councilor Kohler.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. I'm extremely excited to see what's going on there. What I'd like to see in the wall field is that painted green, so we have a green monster, and promote that along with what we're doing. I've spent a lot of time over in the fields. To see something like this come to fruition would be just very exciting for me. The next thing we probably need to do is start working on the railroad underpass.
You heard earlier.
Do you need some bike racks too while you're at it?
Bike racks.
You know there's going to be bike racks. Yeah. So I'm going to go Councilor Cross, then Councilor Husman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Great job. You're doing I watched you virtually with your presentation, so that's amazing. I love your passion. Have you even gotten as far as thought about, in regards to when you talk about scholarships, what percentage of your program will be scholarships?
So we're working on a preliminary budget right now that outlines what a typical year, not necessarily like a startup year, looks like. But we anticipate, can you remember? Jamie's thinking.
Hold on, see if I can find a document.
We have, so in our 1023 that we submitted for filing status with the IRS, we essentially pledged a scholarship fund be created. That was back in November of 2022 when we didn't have all of our details ironed out yet. That pledge was $25,000 for, I believe it was 5 gifts to 5 nominated athletes. We weren't very specific about in Oregon or in Keizer, but that number has only increased. So in that budget, I think if Jamie can pull it up while I stall.
It's details we don't need tonight.
Yeah, no, we don't need to know. I just wondered if you had even gotten that.
Yes,
So thank
absolutely.
you so much.
I know that we settled for our first year at 10 scholarships. We anticipate to be profitable from day one, knock on wood, if all of our numbers pan out. There's a very good chance that in year one, we will be able to adjust that to more.
Right, and speaking to that, we also created a nonprofit not to be profitable at the end of the year. We do anticipate every dollar being spent, or every dollar in revenue being spent back into the mission and back into the community. And as we enter agreements with, in building contracts and with engineers, we're entertaining a lot of offers locally to keep as much money in Keizer as we can.
Councilor Husband.
I don't mean to be pithy, but this is where newly reformed sidewalk advocate Councilor Kohler and I absolutely agree.
Yes.
Your advocacy on things like bike racks at the Little League fields, it may sound silly, but absolutely kids can bike to the Little League Park with one of those amazing bat bags on their backs.
Yep. No, and we got this opportunity to, I think, to have this conversation because we built a relationship with Adam, and we were in part of the Keizer Rapids planning, and so we learned. I know more about bike racks than I've ever. I could put more years than I ever rode a bike. So we are very excited. We want to be a community and a family-friendly place. As you guys spoke tonight in regards to traffic, things like that. We know there's a huge traffic impact, and making sure that we can mitigate that to the best of our ability is high priority. The other thing for us is obviously these are young people, and do they look both ways before they cross the street? No, but we know that we will fill up the restaurants. We know that we will fill up the hotels. And how do we make it safe for people to move about? In some sense, the system, the roadway system, in the end. A fatality or anything to that is dire for a community, and that's not something we even want to entertain.
Oh, I appreciate your vision, and if nothing else, please take from me, and I wish Mr. Walker were here in person to hear this too, but everything that's being discussed happens to sit at the nexus of a lot of transportation and climate goals that would unlock the potential of the city of Keizer.
Yeah.
We've discussed them inside conversations and among ourselves at the dais, seemingly ad nauseum, not necessarily me because I'm a newer counselor, but others have. The opportunity is there for so much, and while at the end of the day, yes, you have a nonprofit to run. Job number one, right, of a nonprofit, stay alive and adhere to the mission. But I hope that the general advocation for the place within the city remains, because I think it's just too good of an opportunity not to take advantage of all that. It's too important to too many people not to realize just how much potential impact there is in the space right now.
Absolutely. And we strategically picked Keizer for a reason. We knew what impact we could bring and what impact this opportunity could bring to put a silver star for Keizer on the map. So.
Council President Starr.
Thank you. I would like to encourage or see in the letter of intent that the scholarships that you're offering are for Keizer youth, not for youth outside of Keizer. Because
that's not inclusive though.
Well, but I guess my question is, then let's reserve a certain number for Keizer youth. I get inclusivity, but I don't want to see 0 Keizer youth able to get a scholarship because they're all out of the area.
Sure. We have a whole process to get a scholarship. So if nobody, I would hate to see dollars that are bucketed for Keizer that sit bucketed for Keizer because nobody from the Keizer area applies. If you see. So giving priority to Keizer and bucketing away whatever money that is if nobody from this area takes opportunity, because it's not, there's a process to go through, there's a matrix to go through. We have to look strategically at everybody who's wanting funds. And if nobody from this area takes advantage, then we potentially have money that's sitting there.
Yeah, I would, in letter of intent, just illustrate how your project, your proposal is for doing scholarships and so forth, so it will be clear in the review how that will pan out. So I think that would be what I would ask, is how you plan to structure that.
And we do get to review the letter of intent before it's sent and approve the letter of intent, correct?
Correct, yeah. It'd come back for a formal resolution.
Yep, okay. And the other thing that I would like is that there is a governing board member, or I think you mentioned that in your introduction, that there be somebody on the governing board.
Somebody from what?
From Keizer, or from the city council, whatever you were talking about, that we have the ability to have somebody,
I just mentioned a local.
yeah, local. I think there
Somebody
needs to
from
be at least,
So Mickey Walker is will be a board member.
but he's part of the operating agreement, and I'm not comfortable with that. Anybody in the Walker family that's operating as part of the operator agreement should not be serving on the board of directors. That's a conflict of interest, real or perceived.
We also have another Keizer member that sits on our board. So outside of that,
I think the city council needs to have a say in a spot on the board.
so you want a city council member on the board?
I want the city council to appoint somebody to serve on the board. The city representative.
I guess I'm a little concerned. We own the park. We have a parks board that oversees that park. We're going to have staff that will be overseeing the agreement. This is a nonprofit, and they are going to be operating in that park, and that's how we're going to have that relationship. I would not support putting that into the letter of intent.
Then, Mr. Brown, can I ask what you were referring to?
Mr. Johnson, had his hand up.
I think the question was to Mr.
It was-
Brown first.
Okay.
I was not necessarily thinking of a city council appointee, but having, in their bylaws, having somebody from Keizer on their governing body. That's as far as my mind went. with
What
it.
about a liaison or somebody that can, like the board, she's
parks.
gone. The Parks Board or the Library Board or,
Their parks.
yeah, the parks right there, yeah.
Yeah, anything's possible.
Yeah. Non-voting liaison, I can see, to keep that communications going, but a voting member of their board, for us to insert ourselves into the operation of a nonprofit, I would be hesitant. I'm going to go Mr. Johnson, and I'll go to Councilor Cross.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Council's certainly welcome to get into whatever details you want to get into tonight. I think Mr. Brown was looking for general ideas from the council, not necessarily consensus on a specific item. I think the direction, by more than Councilor Starr, is some type of involvement. We can work through those details and come back to you. If you would prefer to get into the exact details of that involvement, you can certainly do so too.
Councilor Cross.
Well, that's a lot of information that I hadn't thought about. I guess I'm just a little confused about, we, like as in Lavadome, needs a letter of intent because that will help you say, hey, City of Keizer is behind you. Is that correct? Basically like, hey, Adidas or whoever, look, they're our friends. Is that right? So we can have it just be a blanket, we support you unless we want to get into an agreement. Is that correct?
Well,
We support you, use our logo.
Well,
No, it's more than that.
It's just a question of what step you folks want to take. The letter of intent was my idea because we started with the idea of having an agreement, a formal agreement. To me, the relationship was complex enough that both parties would benefit from an interim letter of intent. Councilor Cross is talking about something that would be even before that, similar to the support for a House bill. I think the council generally already has shown their support. And if the Lava Dome project is simply looking for a resolution of support, we certainly could do that. But I think the parties were kind of looking to take it to the next step. Again, it's totally up to you folks on how you want to handle that.
So what I think with the letter of intent, what this does, takes the relationship up a notch, we've had our first date, and now we're actually, talking about entering a relationship. So it's kind of not so much a prenup, but it's leading up to that betrothal. So, doing business, if you will. But I think that the direction that we've given tonight is that we're interested, and correct me if I'm wrong, in going ahead and having staff work with the Lava Dome and conversation with Love of the Game on what this letter of intent will look like, and then it will come back to us for us to review, because this is something going to be necessary. If people are going to be investing money, they have to know that we're serious about the relationship. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what you're looking for, because lenders are looking for an LOI. So, does that make sense? Okay. So with that, the lateness of the hour, anything else before we put a motion on the table? Council President Starr.
I move that the Keizer City Council adopt Resolution R 2023, authorizing the city manager and city attorney to work with the Lava Dome and for Love of the Game to prepare a letter of intent to be approved by the city council.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded that the Keizer City Council adopt Resolution R 2023, authorizing city manager and city attorney to work with the Lava Dome and for the Love of the Game to prepare a letter of intent to be approved by city council. Any further discussion for the purpose of recruiting a city attorney? Mr. Brown? Mr. Pina?
Yes. Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. I'll try to make it brief given the lateness of the hour. As you all know, our current city attorney had the audacity to retire and rehire recently as of January 2022, and we do have an employment contract that terminates no later than the end of February 24. So we are in that prime point right now where we need to make some decisions and move forward fairly quickly, especially if we do choose to go the route of an executive recruiter, because there's some additional time for an RFP. During our Personnel Policy Committee meeting on January 23rd, the PPC members asked for recommendations on the pros and cons of using an executive recruiter. So I did draft that for you, and that's included in the packet tonight. I would say that primarily all of the items on the con side of the list can be addressed with hiring a professional recruiter. We had a fairly limited response to our last RFP. It was a matter of timing and lots of recruitments going on at the time. And I believe that we will have a much better response this time around, and have even checked in with a couple of entities that didn't apply to make sure that they would be interested if we did go out. So I think we'll have a better choice of folks to work with. So with all of that in mind, really the only remaining thing is the cost, which is not small. It is $25,000 to $35,000, which is a same estimate we used when we hired a recruitment firm for the city manager. And as you saw on the pros and cons, there are some guarantees that go along with that that are pretty important. In talking to some of my peers around the state that have recently recruited for a city attorney, there have been a couple of those recruitments that went unfilled. And so the idea that we can have a second full recruitment if necessary and have that not cost us anymore would be really good. But my real hope is that with the networking that is available with executive recruiters that have been out there, that this might be a place where it's smart for us to use some funds to get that additional support. So with all of that in mind, we're ready to immediately post an RFP if we do have council approval. Of course, you always have the option of not going that route, and if so, I would ask that you agree to my working directly with the mayor on the recruitment, and it would, timing would start just a little bit later since we wouldn't have an RFP. And then last but not least, you have the option to choose not to fill the city attorney position and instead contract out for legal services. But I'm doubtful that that's something you want to do at this time. So, any questions?
Questions on the recruitment?
I have one.
Council President Starr?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. When you say under the second pro, where you say candidate guarantee usually for a period of 90 to 120 days following a new hire, but sometimes up to a full year.
Yes.
What are the odds of the up to a full year?
I've seen a couple of recruitment contracts with that in there. Many of the executive recruiters will go a full year.
Oh, then,
yeah.
Okay, I'm good with that.
Yeah, we saw this when we did our last recruitment. Councilor Cross, you had a question?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a quick question. I noticed that this will be paid through ARPA funds, and you said that in the past we've used it. How did we pay for it before?
For the city manager, we also used ARPA funds, correct? No?
No, we didn't have those.
Oh, we didn't. Okay. Do you want to address how we paid it?
For the last recruitment where we used a executive recruiting firm, it was paid through the city manager's budget, so that got allocated out to all of the individual funds at the end of the day.
Thank you.
So, i.e. general fund. Okay, any other questions? Council President Starr?
I move that the Keizer City Council adopt, I'm reading the wrong one. Hold on, let me start over. I move the City Council adopt Resolution R 2023, authorizing city manager to initiate a request for proposal process to hire executive recruiting firm for the purposes of recruiting a city attorney.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the Keizer City Council adopt Resolution R 2023, authorizing the city manager to initiate request for proposal process to hire executive recruiting firm for the purpose of recruiting a city attorney. And since I don't have the time, and neither does Michelle, so the idea of us trying to figure this out, I greatly appreciate this motion, and I'll be in favor of it. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed signify by saying no. Good, hearing no objection, motion passes unanimously. Otherwise, you're going to be on the committee. All right.
Not my first rodeo.
Yeah, I know, but yeah, this one will be well served. Item G, which is the state capital funding request, city manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. This last item here is 2 weeks we came before you. We were hoping that we could submit the same request for capital funding through the legislature from Senator Thatcher's office and Representative Mannix's office. Subsequent to that meeting, I had a conversation with Senator Thatcher's office, and their desire was to not have any duplicate asks in their wish list. So they, knowing that Representative Mannix's list was going to be, our project was going to be a high priority on his list, they didn't want to duplicate it on theirs. So bringing this back for consideration, the deadline is tomorrow, that if the council would like to support Senator Thatcher's request to put this in as a capital funding request. And the project, just to remind you, it's about just under a $2 million project. They're requesting $850,000 from the state. It's to replace the turf with artificial turf and to upgrade the lighting to LED. And this would open up the possibilities of use for the facility with the outfield being able to use for field sports in addition to baseball. Staff recommends the council submit a capital funding request for that project to Senator Thatcher's office.
Thank you very much. And I do appreciate that follow-up was had with Energy Trust of Oregon as a possible funding source for some of the LED lighting, and it is a very small amount. I mean, not that anybody would turn that down as an additional funding stream. Questions or comments on the proposal?
I have a few.
Councilor Starr?
Councilor Duran. So did they alter or adjust the request amount given the 20,000 from Energy Trust?
No, but no, I don't think that would be objectionable to it either. That's
Okay.
20,000 out of the 850,000.
And then is this letter that's being requested from Senator Thatcher simply Senator Thatcher requesting us to do this as part of her process or just a typical process?
Yeah, and I have a draft of it that after we spoke this afternoon, but it is a very simple letter saying we're attaching the capital funding request from the Keizer City Council, should it approve it tonight, that would request funding for the Sports Enterprises, Inc. to replace their current facility with artificial turf fields and efficient LED lighting. The city would appreciate the state's support to make the Salem Keizer Volcano Sports Facility a greater asset to the community. And all-weather turf would add additional opportunities to use the stadium for the city's partner, Sports Enterprise, Inc.
This is
all.
just her process that she's requesting?
Mhm.
Okay. And then I noticed it says that there could be financial benefit to the city because of the revenue agreements that we have. Is there any pro forma on what the potential increases could be should they be able to replace the fields and the lighting?
Well, let me give you an order of magnitude because I think that might answer the question. I believe we got around $30,000 last year. So when we're talking about incremental, we're not going to double that. We're talking, I mean, in my mind, I don't see us anywhere near doubling that. Maybe 5, 10, 20%.
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions, comments? Councilor Kohler?
Thank you, Mayor Clark. One of the questions that I had with this, if this is put together with the request from the city, do they have to use prevailing wage in order to do their improvements?
I believe if they did this on their own, as long as if it has public money involved, which this would be, it would fall under prevailing wage.
I can't tell you for sure, but I think it's likely that it would be under the agreement with the state.
And is that what they've budgeted for?
Well, I don't know.
Well, only of the labor, not of because the turf, that's not a prevailing wage thing, it's just for the installation, so.
The cost of the turf itself, if I may, Madam Mayor.
Mhm.
Whether or not the volcanoes calculated on this issue, well, to be blunt, they'll figure that out and decide whether it's worth it, if you see what I mean. I mean, there has been situations where you decline the grant. So you have to remember, it's a fairly sizable amount of money. They just do the math and figure out if they're going to decline the grant or not.
And Madam Mayor, as the mayor stated earlier, Mickey reached out to me today too, and also apologized for not being able to be here because he's sick with his family. But Otherwise, I'm sure he would want to be here to answer those questions.
So just to, oh, you had one more?
Oh, of course.
It'll be here all night.
I just wanted to express my concern again that I'm not sure that the right thing for us to do as a city is to be involved in a public, or the public being involved in a private entity for raising funds, that's all.
So push back a little bit on that is the city owns the land, and these private-public partnerships are funded through the state, and some examples were given here. So that's why I support, I mean, you get 100% of what you don't ask for. And if we can bring more money into the city for more projects that are gonna get done, I have no problem myself. Anybody else? Motion on the table? Council President Starr?
I move to authorize the city manager to submit a capital funding request on behalf of Sports Enterprises, Inc. for artificial turf and LED upgrades to Volcano Stadium.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the Keizer City Council authorize the city manager to submit a capital funding request on behalf of the Sports Enterprises, Inc. for artificial turf and LED upgrades to Volcano Stadium. Any more discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, say no.
No.
Motion passes 6-1, and the one is Councilor Hessman. All right, this goes in consent calendar. Council President Starr.
Okay, I move approval of the consent calendar consisting of item A, approval of March 16th, 2023, City of Keizer, City of Salem, Marion County Board of Commissioner meeting minutes, and item B, approval of the April 3rd, 2023 regular session minutes.
I've got to pull B for a correction, sorry.
I move that the Keizer City Council approve the consent calendar. Item A, approval of March 16th, 2023, City of Keizer, City of Salem, Marion County Board of Commissioner meeting minutes.
Second.
Consent calendar 9A has been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed signify by saying no. Motion passed unanimously. Sorry, Ms. Davis, at the end, Elia, her name was misspelled. So that could just be corrected. That's all I've got. So, Council President Starr?
I move the Keizer City Council approve the April 3rd, 2023 regular session minutes with corrections.
Second.
The consent calendar, item 9B, has been moved and seconded as corrected. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed signify by saying no. Motion passes unanimously. Other business, this time is provided to allow the mayor, city council members, or staff an opportunity to bring new or old matters before the council that are not on tonight's agenda. Mr. Brown, do we have anything further?
I don't have any further business. Thank you.
Council, anything further? Okay, we'll go on then to staff updates. Ms. DePina? Okay, Mr. Brown? Mr. Wood? Waiting for the budget. Ms. Davis?
I have nothing, thank you.
Chief?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Lawyer? Mr. Witham? Mr.
Nothing
Johnson?
tonight. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Madam Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Are we going to be having a blast camp this year, Chief?
Yes, ma'am. Planning a blast camp this year.
So first one since COVID, huh?
Yeah, first one in what, 3 years?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Fantastic. Very popular. Council member reports. Councilor Cross.
I'm going to be fast because it's past my bedtime. So I went to Salem City Club, got to listen to Deb Patterson and Senator Deb Patterson and Representative Paul Evans give us like a halftime report on what's going down at the Capitol. So that was interesting. I attended Salem First Citizen, which is great. Saw Peter Courtney get his Legacy Award, Salem Chamber Forum Lunch, Keizer Chamber Board meeting, LB Latino Business Alliance Pan Dulce with Councilor Kohler, Marion Polk Chef's Night Food Share with Councilor Starr. And I really want to highlight that I went and saw the 24 Challenge Math Competition on April 7th with Shakes the Top 5. fourth and fifth graders from all the schools, and I got to see them do their little flashcades and it was just amazing because first, third, and fifth place for the fourth grade all came from Weddell. So that is amazing. And then side proud, me mama moment, my grandson got fourth place for the fifth graders. But he goes to Chicago. So, yep, that's it. Thank you.
Congratulations. Got it. I used to coach our team with Colleen Bush. So our kids did well as well. Congrats. Councilor Duran.
I have nothing.
Council President Starr.
He did too have something.
You've been ratted out, dude.
Trying to be quick.
So I had the opportunity the week of April 5th, 6th, and 7th to travel to Atlanta and participate in a industry-leading board and committee facilitator training, which was led by Board Source, who focuses on nonprofit facilitation. When I got back, I got to, over the weekend, work on grant reviews for the governor's executive order for different grants to local communities. And I will let Mayor Clark, since she's on the executive committee, talk about the results of that. I attended a grant review meeting. I attended the Public Safety Coordinating Council meeting for Marion County on April 11th, the library board meeting on April 13th, and then, as Councilor Cross mentioned, we attended the Marion Polk Food Shares Chef's Night Out event.
All right. Councilor Kohler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will give a Reader's Digest version.
Challenge.
Not quite as short as Councilor Duran's. I enjoyed our community health impact meeting with the CEOs of the 3 hospitals in Marion County. I was kind of shocked to learn that it takes $2 million a day to run Salem Health. So I attended the Parks Board meeting, the LBA, as Latino Business Alliance, as Councilor Cross talked about, Keizer United this morning. This weekend is Earth Day at Keizer Rapids Park, and the 26th is the Keizer Community Dinner, and the 20th is the Keizer Fire District 75th anniversary celebration. So I also had the opportunity to take a check to Marion Polk Food Share this last week, which paid for refrigerator and a freezer, commercial units for the new Aware Food Bank in Woodburn that was donated by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Pretty amazing.
Good stuff. Thank you so much. Councilor Houseman.
TSBP meeting Thursday, 6 p.m. here at the community center. It's going to be very interesting in light of today's events. I can already feel that. And it'll be the coming out party of Councilor Kohler as a multi-mobility advocate.
Okay, I'm going to tune in. Councilor Reed.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So we are in the midst of spring sports, and I'll let Youth Councilor Sarmiento talk more about that. But track meets have been lots of fun. We had our first home meet last week, and we'll have our last one next week. We said goodbye to our German exchange students this morning. So they were here for just over 2 weeks, and it was a wonderful time to get to know them and see that program back to its fullness. This weekend, there is a play happening at McNary called Finding Hope, and it is written by a student, directed by a student, and we often do one acts that are written by students and directed by students, but this is a full-on play, and it is going to be pretty impressive. I'm excited to see that. This Wednesday, there's Noche Familiar, which at McNary, and the topic for the night will be starting a college savings account for students, and there will be childcare available, so that will be at McNary. And then there is Soggy Day in the Park coming up this Saturday from 9 to noon.
Youth Councilor Sarmiento.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, prom was last week. It was very fun. I'm sure a lot of people had fun in the process, and even our German exchange students went. Band, choir, and orchestra districts were last week. Band placed first overall in the district, and our symphony placed third. On softball, for softball, on Tuesday, we have a junior varsity and varsity game versus Sprague at home, 3:30 to 5:15. Tennis versus North Salem at 4 p.m. Junior varsity baseball versus South at 5 here at McNary. And on Wednesday, we have track varsity meet versus North. At 4, softball, we have a junior varsity game versus West. And then our Honors Chamber Orchestra is heading to the Oregon Coast Youth Symphony Festival on Thursday, and we're staying there over the weekend to perform for kids over there. And on Thursday, we also have a tennis match, varsity versus Sprague at 4 here at McNary. And softball, we have a junior varsity game versus Jesuit High School at 5.
Whoa, congratulations to the band and orchestra. Well done. Congratulations. That's fantastic. All right, just to wrap it up real quick, the Mid-Willamette Valley Homeless Alliance, of which Keizer is a member, we worked collaboratively across our 2 counties with our service providers, our government partners, in putting together the requirements for the Governor's Executive Order 2302 regarding housing and homelessness. I am so thankful for the work that went into framing the work that we wanted to propose to meet our goals in rapid rehousing and emergency shelter, not only just in providing services, but how they would be provided and making sure that they fit with the best practices that we as a 2-county collaborative have come to expect and the quality that we want to approach this work for the people we serve. And thank you to Council President Starr and about 20 other people who worked as reviewers. The results are, on Thursday, the Mid-Willamette Valley Board unanimously selected the package of projects for the rapid rehousing. These 4 projects would serve 185 households, and the goal that had been set for us was 158. Very excited about that. On the emergency shelter side, we have 7 projects that will be funded for a total of $5.8 plus million. And our goal, according to the governor's office, was 79. This package of projects will bring 215 additional emergency shelter beds online. Way to go. Very, very happy and very proud of the organizations that work together to bring these proposals forward. We will be able to put that money into use very quickly. And as a little side note, this month, Yaquina Hall opened, the Arches Lodge opened, and next week, the Navigation Center in Salem will open. We are getting things done to take care of people so they will no longer experience homelessness. On another collaborative note, I attended a meeting along with Shane Witham with the City of Salem and Marion County regarding the proposed, what they call governance structure. It's actually just a collaborative agreement of how we're going to work together for the climate-friendly and equitable community rules and the scenario planning that we are required to do. And it was actually turned out to be a pretty short meeting because Mr. Witham and his colleagues had done a great job bringing proposals forward that us electeds could figure out pretty quickly. It was very straightforward, and we will be bringing back to all 3 of our agencies, City of Keizer included, will be on the advisory committee. We will have 3 representatives or 3 votes for Salem, 2 for Keizer, 2 for Marion County, 1 for the transit district, and we will work together on putting together our preferred scenario, which is kind of flexible and gushy. So like the housing and homelessness, by working together, we figure stuff out. So those are the couple of big highlights. One other item I wanted to, where is it? It's got a star on it. That's pretty much it. Coming up, we did cancel the Personnel Policy Committee meeting for Wednesday night, so we got our night back. And we're going to be continuing work on the Homeless Alliance has a meeting coming up this coming week for continuing to move forward with the contracts with our proposers. And next week, I will be attending the League of Oregon Cities Spring Conference in Seaside along with our city manager. That's all I got. All right, so I put my agenda away because I was getting ready to go too soon. Agenda input, May 1st, we will meet at 7 p.m. in regular session. On May 8th at 6 p.m., we will meet as the Budget Committee. Again, on May 9th at 6 p.m., Budget Committee. And on May 15th, we will meet at 7 p.m. in regular session. Anything else for the good of the order tonight? All right, thank you all very much. The time is 10:21. We are adjourned.